Hello, good evening, and good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. This is episode 352. I hope you're all doing great. We're going to discuss the Iran war and other things as well, as per the questions that you asked me. But we're going to first start with the situation in Iran and the region. But before we do any of that, let us see who all is there on the live stream, on the live chat with us. I can see Rano Nahapana. Hello, Ola. Nakshatra. Lavish Tind, Rohan Biri, Namaste, the Eternal Witness. Hello, Geopolitical Dubai from Indore. Good evening, sir. Jagat Guru Swami Veganand, Namaste. Ashwini Sharma, hello, Shubh Sandhya. Amay Tulpule from Allemagne, bonsoir, monsieur. Le printemps est arrivé, oui, très bien. Om O Popali, okay. Meghna Kothari, namaste. Om Nayak, namaskar. Animish Bharati, namaste from California. Well, namaste to you. Nikita Anesthesia, hello. Animish Bharatiya once again. Yes, Vaibhav, Vinod Vaibhav. Brave Robot is here. Kahan is from Saket, Delhi. Hello. Somi is here from Jaipur. Samarth Pramanik, Raghuveer Singh, W1282. GSRC 6231. Heisenberg, hello. Jai Hind to you as well. Jai Hind to everyone. Anoop, hi. Vinod Vaibhav once again. Dr. Stranger Guy, Sun Rocket. All right. By saying General Subotai thinks that the Americans are following General Subutai's pattern. Well, we shall see. General Subutai did do a lot of innovating, didn't he, when it comes to warfare? Yes. Raghuveer Singh, once again, wise idiot, hello. Nagananda Shanoy, hello. Good to see you. Good to have you back. Thank you. Abhay Singh, Ankit Mohapatra, hello. Abhishek Shukla Live, Kahan, who else? Dr. Stranger Guy once again. Animals from for Laugh is back here from Mumbai. Good evening to you. Tanmay Deshpande, Ansh Divu, Ram Ram sir, Jnanesh, hello. Who else? McLevin, Ram Ramji, Manisha Cardoso, Namaste ma'am, Kalyani, hello. Devik Shriyan, hello, good to see you. Dr. Stranger Guy, Dr. Atul from Kochi, hello sir. Ayush Singh, Namaste ji, Pranam. So many other people. Humanity survives. Yes, it does survive, hopefully. Jayant is here from Berlin. Good afternoon or good evening to you. Yeah, must be evening, reasonably eveningish now. Sid is here. Dr. Atul from Kochi once again. McLevin. Anish is here from Calgary in Canada. Namaste ji. And so many other people. When did YouTube add handles? Okay. Prince Chaudhary is here from Gujarat. Akash Chaurasia. Jyotsna Tomar, namaste. Dheeraj Kamath, good morning. Good morning. Trail Tales, Srini Bhumi, namaste ji. Namaste. Swami is here from Swami. Okay, Swami. Chat DSP, namaste ji. Namaste. Good to see you. Okay. Abhiman Gopinath. Abhiman Gopinath. Akash from Kanpur, UP. And everyone else. Okay, so hello to everyone. So now let's get going with the updates, and then I'll take as many questions as you ask me. So what's going on? What is the situation in West Asia? Is there going to be peace now, or is the US planning to spring a big surprise? You see, you have to understand that the guy who is running the US right now is Donald J. Trump. The guy has a massive, massive ego, and he wants to be remembered in history. He's an elderly person now. What's his age? Must be close to 80, around 80. Yeah. Why is he doing whatever he's doing? He wants to be remembered in history. He wants to leave behind a legacy. He wants to be remembered as the biggest, baddest, greatest president of the United States in all history. That's what he wants to be remembered for. He doesn't want to be remembered for being the guy who lost to Iran. And therefore, I don't think that this ceasefire is going to last too long. I think Trump is planning to spring a big surprise on Iran. And we know that we saw yesterday, in yesterday's live stream, that he's in the process of assembling a massive military force in the region. Multiple aircraft carriers. There's lots of large transport aircraft flying into the region every single day. There's a whole bunch of refueling aircraft in Israel right now. There's so much more that they're bringing on site in the Gulf region right now. Looks like this ceasefire is just a ploy for the US to regroup, re-strategize, reorient itself, and rearm, bring in more arms, weapons, munitions, everything, and then go after Iran once again. And it looks like there are currently now 3 aircraft carriers positioned in the overall CENTCOM region. So I think sooner or later there's going to be an attack, massive attack on Iran, bigger, more massive than what the US did in the first round of the war. So that's what I think is going to happen. I hope I'm completely wrong. I hope there's peace. Yes. But it looks like this could be on the cards. Now, let's take a look at what's been happening over the past 24 hours or so. Yesterday, I showed you what's happened over the past week or so. Now, let's see what's happened over the past 24 hours or so. So let's see. What have we here? So this is from yesterday evening, yesterday night when we were having our discussion. So this is from a lady who is a anchor and White House correspondent at Fox News. And she says that breaking news yesterday night. President Trump just told me over the phone that he has unilaterally cancelled Witkoff and Kushner's trip to Pakistan to meet the Iranians. I've told my people a little while ago they were getting ready to leave, and I said, nope, you're not making an 18-hour flight to go there. We have all the cards. They can call us anytime they want, but you're not going to be making any more 18-hour flights to sit around talking about nothing. Okay. So that's something that happened last night. What else? And there have been news reports. So this is from today. It's from today. So who is Ryan Grimm? Ryan Grimm is a reporter at Dropsite News, and he's an author. Okay. So he says that the erroneous news reports indicating that the US and Iran would be restarting talks were produced because Pakistan's ISPR sent the following incorrect update to many journalists. They did not send it directly to me, but I was forwarded it. And this was the message. Breaking, attributable to Pakistani government sources. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is expected to arrive in Islamabad tonight with a small delegation, according to government sources, Pakistani government sources. Following important discussions with the Pakistani mediation team, a second round of Islamabad peace talks between the US and Iran is expected, Pakistani government sources say. A US logistics and security team is already present in Islamabad to facilitate the negotiation process. So this is what the Pakistani military establishment, this is the message, this is the update that's sent to Western journalists and Pakistani journalists as well. And these Western journalists, they immediately reported that the US and Iran would be restarting talks in Islamabad. This was completely incorrect. So it was never true that Araghchi had any plans to re-enter negotiations last week. Why would the Pakistanis say otherwise? And that's odd stuff. So the Pakistanis are, they're doing what they're best at, misleading people and sowing chaos in the world. So it's interesting that, okay, we know that the Pakistanis can't be trusted, but why is the Western media picking up everything the Pakistanis are saying as gospel truth and publishing it? The Western media seems to be very aligned with Pakistan, doesn't it? Very interesting. Very interesting. The Western media. So it looks like the Western media. See, look, first of all, the Western media isn't some, independent media or something. They have an agenda. They have the agenda to put forth whatever is, in the American national interest. And that's why they probably have been told to align themselves with Pakistan and put forth any propaganda nonsense that Pakistan gives them. And the Pakistanis gave them a big untruth, which is why it got published yesterday. Okay, what else? Who is this gentleman? Hassan Ahmadian. He's an associate professor of West Asian Studies at the University of Tehran in Iran. So what does he say? He says that Iran presents the US with two options. Firstly, agreement on a framework built on the outcomes of the war and the American failure in the war, based on international law, giving Iran what it earned both economically and legally. That's option one. Option 2, resumption of military confrontation through the implementation of the siege on the ground or striking Iran directly for the third time. The hope of achieving a military breakthrough still lingers among some of Trump's inner circle. Number 3, a third option can also be considered: an American stopping of the siege, leaving the Strait of Hormuz and the post war balance to the international community and Iran to deal with. Iran leans more towards the first and third options, but it focuses on its efforts on preparing for the second. So this looks like an accurate, outline of the options that Iran and the US have. Iran will prefer the first and the third option, but it will be preparing for the second option, and Trump will prefer the second option, right? So what this person has tweeted, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the official position of the government of Iran, but it is a logical analysis of what options are available to the US and to Iran. And my understanding, my analysis is that the US will prefer number 2, which is why I said at the beginning of this live stream that Trump is most likely going to try and spring a big surprise on Iran, and that's why he is bringing in this massive military force posture in the region with 3 aircraft carriers and tremendous resupply of whatever troops they have and all that. So most likely, I believe Trump is going to go for option 2, and that could happen sooner or later, maybe sooner. We'll see. He will order the attack when he's convinced that everything that can be brought into the region has been brought in, and now is the time to strike. Okay, Ethan Levins says NBC confirms an American base was struck with an Iranian F-5 jet. The F-5 was built in 1959, 67 years ago. It just bombed the largest military in the world. Well, not just bombed, it was a month ago or so, but yes. So listen, a month ago when the actual hot war was going on, there was a lot of speculation that Iran was getting blasted, and the Americans had lost maybe a 5 or 6 aircraft and maybe a few military personnel. But now it is increasingly emerging that the Americans suffered massive damage to their military bases and much more. We know that they tried a failed operation to steal Iranian fissile material, and that was a complete disaster. At least 12 aircraft were destroyed, including helicopters and whatnot. And we don't know if Americans were taken prisoner or not, but yeah, that's what happened. At least 12 aircraft of the US were destroyed in that failed operation. So now there's more of this news coming out. Let's see. Brian Allen says, who is this gentleman? He is a podcast host. He is cited by New York Post, etc. Okay. Brian Allen. So he says, take a close look at this. NBC News, which is an American news outlet, published a major investigation this afternoon. This is today, yes. 6 reporters, 6 named sources inside the US government. So it is 100% credible. 6 named sources from within the US government. The story breaks open something that the Trump administration has been hiding for 2 months. The damage that Iran did to American military bases in the opening phase of this war is far worse than what the Pentagon has admitted. Repairs will cost billions of dollars if repairs ever happen. And here's what NBC found. Washington. American military bases and other equipment in the Persian Gulf region suffered extensive damage from Iranian strikes that is far worse than publicly acknowledged and is expected to cost billions of dollars to repair, according to 3 US officials, 2 congressional aides, and another person familiar with the damage. The Iranian regime swiftly retaliated after the Trump administration attacked on February 28, hitting dozens of targets across US military bases in 7 Middle East countries. 7. Those attacks struck warehouses, command headquarters, aircraft hangars, satellite communications infrastructure, runways, high-end radar systems, and dozens of aircraft. Dozens of aircraft the US has lost, it means. The US has lost dozens of aircraft, according to the US officials, and an assessment by the American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank in Washington, D.C. In the initial days of the war, an Iranian F-5 fighter jet bombed the US base camp Buring in Kuwait, despite the base having air defenses, a rare breach that marked the first time an enemy fixed-winged aircraft has struck an American military base in years, according to two of the US officials. So this was tweeted today. Continuing, Iran hit American bases across 7 Middle East countries. Iranian missiles and drones struck warehouses, command headquarters, aircraft hangars, satellite communications, runways, high end systems, and dozens of American aircraft. The three US officials familiar with the damage to US bases in the Middle East described it as extensive. The headquarters building for the US Navy in Bahrain, the nerve center for the Navy's operations in the region, suffered serious damage, the officials said. They said other parts of the base in Bahrain also suffered significant damage that is likely repairable. Multiple hangars and warehouses at the Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait were also struck, according to the American Enterprise Institute's unofficial statement that was reviewed by NBC News. The assessment also shows a munitions storage facility at a military base in Erbil in northern Iraq was damaged, and a runway at the sprawling Al Udaid Air Base in Qatar was destroyed. US bases had been cleared of US troops and other personnel, so many of the bases were left essentially empty and vulnerable to attack by Iranian missiles and drones. Many of the troops who were temporarily relocated and expected to return to the bases once tensions in the region subside. Continuing, in one strike at the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, Iran destroyed an E-3 Sentry. That is a flying control and command and control plane. It's one of the most important aircraft in the US military for tracking enemy threats. The tail was blown off. The plane is on the ground in pieces. According to the AEI's statement, Iran hit more than 100 targets across 11 bases in 7 Gulf countries. Those attacks fell on US and host nation bases in Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. As part of Epic Fury, the potential future costs to rebuild American military infrastructure overseas may include repair, reconstruction, outright replacement, or even abandonment or decommissioning of locales. Mackenzie Eaglin, a senior fellow at AEI, said in a statement about the group's assessment. War damage also includes estimated costs for infrastructure that is unsalvageable. Eaglin's cost estimate for repairing the infrastructure is more than $5 billion, but that amount does not account for some of the radar systems, weapon systems, aircraft, and other equipment destroyed in the Iranian strikes, she said. Eaglin has worked on defense and budgetary and military readiness for years and is a former Pentagon official. The Iranians damaged at least 2 air defense systems in the region, according to US officials. Continuing, in the opening days of the war, an Iranian F-5 fighter jet broke through American air defenses and bombed Camp Buring in Kuwait. 2 US officials told NBC this is the first time an enemy fixed-wing aircraft has hit an American military base in years. So in Bahrain, 5th Fleet headquarters, 7 reports of damage to satellite communications, satellite protection, radar protection structures, and large warehouses. Iraq, Erbil military base, 1 report of damage to a general administrative building. Jordan, Muwaffaq Salti Air Base, damage to a general administrative building. Kuwait, Ali Al Salem Air Base, 10 reports of damage to warehouses and a runway. Kuwait Camp Arif Jan, 11 reports of damage to radar protection structures and small and large warehouses. Kuwait Camp Buring, damage to satellite communications, a hangar and warehouses. Kuwait Shuaiba Port, damage to a general administrative building. Qatar Al Udaid Air Base, damage to a runway. Saudi Arabia Prince Al Sultan Air Base, damage to a small warehouse and a radar protection structure. UAE Al Dhafra Air Base, 11 reports of damage to fuel storage, a medical clinic, hangars, and barracks. UAE Al Ruwais Air Base, military base, 7 reports of damage to small warehouses and buildings. Can you see the amount of infrastructure the US has in the West Asia or Gulf region? Bahrain, a massive 5th Fleet headquarters. Iraq, they have a base. Jordan, a base at least that has been damaged or destroyed. Kuwait, it looks like Kuwait is completely permanently under US occupation. Qatar, once again, Al Udaid, Saudi Arabia, UAE. That's how you project power, but that's been destroyed. So this report speaks about damage, but I strongly believe much of this has been destroyed, maybe permanently. Let's continue. What is this? This is by Glenn Greenwald. Who is Glenn Greenwald? Journalist, author, columnist, etc. Okay. Anyone who gets their news about the Iran war from sources outside of the Fox neocon sewer, allegedly, of Sean Hannity and Ben Shapiro already knows that Iran absolutely pummeled US bases in multiple countries. This new reporting shows billions of dollars worth of damage and even cites a study from the neocon AEI for sport. If you talk to any trustworthy American officials, they will tell you the real story. They'll give you the real story about the war, not just that Iran inflicted far more damage than known and that the US government hid it, including the number and severity of US casualties, but also that, as happened in the last war with Iran in 2025, both the US and Israel, and now the Persian Gulf dictatorships, are very low on munitions and especially anti missile defense systems. So, this is the same report all over again, right? Right. Okay. So clearly, the US has taken tremendous damage, and we don't even know how much damage has been inflicted on Israel, which probably is far more than what's happened in the other countries, the other 7 countries. Israel must have taken most likely tremendous damage. So my analysis from the beginning was that Iran is inflicting significant damage to American bases. Eventually, my analysis was that Iran must have destroyed most of the American bases in the region. And this is now beginning to corroborate what I was saying all these weeks ago, right? Okay, let's continue. Let us mute this, pause it, one pause. This is by mute that. Okay, Furkan Gözükara, PhD, etc., etc. Okay, so he says absolute horror. An expert military analysis details the Pentagon's terrifying plan for Iran. By staggering aircraft carriers, the Trump administration is preparing for a suffocating 24/7 continuous bombing campaign with absolutely zero pauses, a calculated plan for mass destruction. That's assuming these aircraft carriers aren't taken out by Iran, which probably has the capability to take out aircraft carriers. But I'm sure the Americans have taken that into account, that Iran has the means to take out their assets at large distances. But it looks like the US has brought in 3 aircraft carriers in the region and multiple ships, and looks like they're planning to, launch a massive, massive attack on Iran sometime soon, potentially, right? So this is what this gentleman is talking about. Let's see more. Terrifying reality check. An expert analyst confirms the Pentagon is planning massive saturation warfare to completely overwhelm Iran's air defenses. The Trump administration is deploying floating cities of destruction to enforce their supposed imperialist will against Tehran. More absolute strategic disaster, he says. An expert military analyst confirms the Pentagon is completely emptying the Pacific to flood the Persian Gulf. The Trump administration is leaving Asia dangerously thin and vulnerable to China, I suppose, just to provoke a disastrous war with Iran. Total incompetence, he says. So it looks like there's gonna be a massive strikes on Iran and a resumption of the war. That's why the US is bringing in all these assets into the region. You see, it costs a lot of money to bring in massive assets into a region. And the longer the assets remain there, the more money it costs. So the US won't burn that much money unless it actually has the intention to resume the war. So it looks like we are in the calm before the storm. And then now there is this. This is by a Twitter account. There's plenty of accounts on Twitter and social media who are reporting this. After Iran destroyed dozens of US and Israeli radars in the region, it's raining and military bases overall. It's raining and pouring in Iran. It hasn't rained this much in decades. The climate war against Iran, as warned by former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, turned out to be true. This has been reported for the past, at least a week. And this is continuing. It's by Susan Al-Hawa, whoever this lady is. Okay. I'm so sick of people dismissing this as conspiracy theory. Literally every conspiracy, from sexual blackmail to the highest authorities, to wars of expansion and oil, to elite pedophile rings and cannibalism, turned out to be true. But there are still fools who think suggesting the US was actively who think that suggesting the US was actively manipulating weather in the region is lunacy. Even though the US has weaponized weather modification since the Vietnam War, see Operation Popeye. And she is correct. Weather modification is an actual thing. It's not a conspiracy theory. The US has been modifying weather since the Vietnam War. That's the 1960s and 1970s. That's more than 50, 60 years ago. Weather modification is a real thing. You will not find papers being published on weather modification because it is a military technology. It is, it's classified technology. How you do it. I mean, we know that you can artificially seed rainfall through cloud seeding, sodium iodide, etc. That's pretty, I suppose it's reasonably well known. But you can prevent rainfall. You can stop rainfall in a region. There's all kinds of stuff you can do through weather modification. And the US is the global leader in weather modification. Right? So this is scientific. This is not some conspiracy theory, even though it is suggested that this is a conspiracy theory. So it looks like the US, which had ring fenced Iran with God knows how many military bases, it was preventing rainfall in Iran, which is why there was so much aridity and drought in Iran. And now it's pouring. There's rainfall, there's snowfall wherever it is, right? In the entire region. So the US most likely was waging a climate war on Iran over the past God knows how many years. And now it's ended because the Iranians have destroyed most of the American bases in the region. I don't know if it's done through radars or through what it's done, but this was being done. All right, so that's the update for the past 24 hours. Now let's take some questions. What questions do we have? Let me see. This is by Om Zero Popali. Why Savak, CIA, Mossad failed in the 1979 Iran. Khomeini in France, cassettes of Khomeini's speeches smuggled despite these agencies knowing about it. The US restrained Shah from the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. They restrained him from using force as a key ally. As key ally collapsed, many unexplained happenings. So what happened? First of all, we know what the CIA is. Many of you will know what Mossad is. Indians are very, very fond of Mossad. But what was Savak? So in the 90s, until 1979, Iran was ruled by a dictator, a Western installed dictator, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was known as the Shah of Iran. He was part of the Pahlavi dynasty, which had two Shahs. His father, Reza Shah, and himself, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. His father was ousted by the West. So the West ousted his father and replaced the father with the son. And the son proved to be very pliable, very amenable to Western diktats, which is why he ruled Iran for so long. After Operation Ajax, the coup against Mohammad Mossadegh. Anyhow, so the Shah of Iran, he was a dictator, and his secret police was called the Savak. And it was a pretty brutal secret police. Anyone who held any opinions that were anti-regime, they would be visited, and then they would potentially disappear or whatever. So the Savak was their secret police. Okay, the CIA, we know it engineers regime changes across the world. Mossad is the Israeli spy agency, right? The Israelis have an external spy agency and an internal spy agency. There is Shin Bet, there is Mossad. Anyhow, that's well known. I'm not telling you any secrets here, okay? So now, what happened in 1979? How did this revolution succeed? When the Shah was backed by the West, he had his Savak, he was also backed by the CIA and Mossad. And the leader of the Islamic movement was Mr. Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, Ruhollah Khomeini. There have been two Ayatollahs in the past, both of whom have very similar names. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who had Indian roots, and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Okay, he's different. So Ruhollah Khomeini, uh, he spent time a few years in Iraq, and then he was in exile in France. And you had cassettes of Khomeini's speeches being smuggled into Iran, and that's what inflamed the emotions and feelings of people. And eventually, there was the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the Islamic Revolution. So, how did SAWAK fail? How did CIA fail? How did SAWAK not prevent this from happening? Why didn't the CIA and Mossad do something about this? How did they allow this revolution to succeed? Is the good question that you're asking here, right? So maybe the Islamic Revolution itself was engineered by the CIA, Mossad, whatever. It's a possibility. See, there was this oil crisis in the 1970s. Let's quickly Google which year the oil crisis started. And before we Google that, okay, there was this oil crisis in the 1970s, and the Shah of Iran. See, the oil crisis was about the Gulf states blockading oil, essentially saying that we will not sell oil to the West because the West supports Israel. Okay? And Iran did not participate in this. They continued selling oil to the US and the West because they were aligned with the West. But the Shah of Iran, he said that, now the West has to pay higher prices. We will no longer pay, accept the low prices that we have been selling oil to you at. Now we want higher prices. So he did not stop the supply of oil to the West, but he demanded higher prices. So he was becoming too full of himself potentially. And he was no longer fully under the West's control. So maybe the West decided, okay, it's time to get rid of this guy and bring in somebody else. So let's Mr. Khamenei is in France. Let's bring him. And maybe he will be, I don't know, maybe we'll be able to control him. Turned out they were not able to control him at all. So maybe it was a disaster that they themselves engineered. But let's quickly take a look at what was this oil crisis in the 1970s. Let's see. 1970s oil crisis. It started after the war. 1970s energy crisis. Okay. Energy crisis. So let's see what Wikipedia has to say about this. Okay. So it was triggered by the Yom Kippur War. Okay. 1973, 1979. The Yom Kippur War, 1973 Arab-Israeli War. So that's what happened. Okay. After the Arab-Israeli War, the Arab states said that we will not sell oil. We're gonna not supply oil to the West. That's why there was this big oil shock, and prices went up. And Iran said, "Okay, yeah, that's great. It works for us. We'll sell oil, but we want the high prices." So maybe the West itself may possibly have engineered the 1979 revolution in Iran under perhaps the assumption that the new regime we will be able to control it, but turns out they were not able to control it. Yeah, that is a plausible explanation of for what happened. Yeah, history books won't tell you this, but consider the possibility. But maybe that's the reason why CIA, Mossad failed. SAWAK, once the support from CIA, Mossad goes away, then SAWAK will fail itself, right? Okay. Sid says, 100-year culture shift, can military trust converts? I have no idea. I don't know. Listen, I don't get into religious issues, okay? Yeah. Okay. Sid says, why did you stop 3 to 6 minutes videos of important topics? Miss them. It will resume very soon. Sid, thank you so much for the reminder. It will resume very soon. Potentially, most likely in this coming week, it's going to resume. Okay, all the backlog will be clear. All right. Thank you, sir. Trishul says, if the US wants to contain India, why limit Pakistani F-16s versus India? Limit? Who is limiting what? Uh, is the US limiting Pakistani F-16s? I have no idea. Pakistan has a number of F-16s. Listen, until Trump came to power in 2024, the US regarded India as an indispensable partner in containing China. Of course, the approach changed after 2022, after the special military operation in Ukraine, when the US realized that India will not always play ball with us. They will not always, India will not always obey our orders. I mean, in the 2010s, they said, stop buying Iranian oil. India obeyed. Yes, sir, we will obey. But in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Americans said, participate in Western sanctions against Russia and stop buying Russian oil. India said, we will not participate in the sanctions against Russia and we will buy more Russian oil. So that's when the American approach and attitude towards India changed. So until then, they had capped. I mean, they I think they were not. What's the deal? Did Pakistan want to buy more F-16s? Maybe they did. And America must have refused, right? So until 2022, the US was not really engaging with Pakistan that much. And in 2022, they did the coup in Pakistan. They removed Imran Khan and brought in Shahbaz Sharif. So that's when the American re-engagement with Pakistan has started, 2022. I don't know if they've contained Pakistani limited F-16s or whatever it is, but now the Americans are engaging with Pakistan in a variety of ways. They may even sell them F-16s. Yeah. The policy of the American policy of containing India is a recent one. It's not 20 years old. It's a recent one, right? It started around 2022. Until then, the US regarded India as an indispensable partner in their quest to contain China. Now it's all different, right? Trump's approach is totally different. So this containment policy is a new policy. It's reasonably recent. Now, who knows? They may even sell more F-16s to Pakistan. We'll see. Piyush Shukla says, what is your view on Sugriv Atlas? Do you believe it? I don't know. I haven't read it, so I can't say. It's a book, is it? What is Sugriva's Atlas? I don't know about it. Let's see what it is. Sugriva's Atlas. It's a book by Nilesh Oak. What is Sugriva's Atlas? It's his book, is it? Nilesh Oak? Okay, I don't know what this is. I'm sorry. No idea. Okay, Buryat Stalin says, like India, China also received licensed production for Sukhois, but they made it in scale. They made their own variants. They have more than 1,000 in their inventory. Production rate is even higher than that of Russia. Yet we call ourselves Vishwaguru. We imagine we are soon to be a superpower. So the Chinese, you're right, and they reverse engineered the Sukhoi 27, and they produced their own variant of the Sukhoi 27, which is not licensed. Once the Chinese acquire something, they take it apart. Let's say they buy 50 Sukhoi 27s. Okay, they will use them, but they will keep 2 aside for reverse engineering. So they will take them apart, screw by screw, component by component. They will completely disassemble it. They will have teams of engineers who will study each component in detail, and then they will build their own version of it at home, and then they will modify it. So now the Chinese version will be called Shenyang something or whatever. Let's find out. Shenyang something or whatever. Let's see. What is the Chinese version of the Sukhoi 27 called? Yeah, it's the Shenyang J11. The Chinese version of the Sukhoi 27 is called the Shenyang J11. It was initially produced in China under a licensed agreement with Russia using supplied kits, but later evolved into an indigenous variant, J11B, with domestic engines, radar, and avionics, making it a reverse engineered version which is unlicensed, which means the Chinese stole the technology from the Russians. Okay? So it's unlicensed. It's a stolen technology. Once they reverse engineered the whole thing, they started building their own versions, not under Russian license, and they inserted their own components. So that's what any self-respecting nation does. You buy equipment from abroad, but you keep a couple of the sets aside to for reverse engineering. You take it completely apart, tear it to pieces properly. Yeah. Study every goddamn component, study every screw, every nail, every component, and have your engineers create their own versions of this. Then test it, then fly it, then improve it. Fit in your engines, your avionics, your weapon systems. That's what the Chinese have been doing. They've taken every Russian thing apart and created their own versions. They've taken Russian transport aircraft and created Chinese versions. Let's find out. Which Russian transport aircraft did the Chinese reverse engineer? The Chinese reverse engineered the Soviet Russian Antonov AN-12 transport aircraft. Now they are producing it as the Shaanxi Y-8. Okay? There's so much more they have reverse engineered, the Chinese. Everything that you can imagine. Russian helicopters, okay? Russian helicopters, military. Okay, there's all kinds of helicopters also that the Chinese have reverse engineered. Everything. And you may say it's illegal, it is unethical, whatever. This is, in geopolitics, there is no right or wrong. There's what you can do and what you can't do. Once you acquire something, why don't you use it? So India imported the MiG-21s in large numbers. We never bothered to take it apart and create our own versions. If we had started the process back then, we would have had entire families of fighter aircraft by now. We had what's that? Marut. We had the Marut, which was our own. We killed it. Our wonderful politicians killed it. So this is the problem with India. It's not a problem with you Indians or us Indians. It's a problem with the people that the system pushes up and makes them our leaders. The system is rotten. So obviously the worst kind of individuals typically often rise to the top. The system seeks out and destroys talent, and it rewards mediocrity by making it rise to the top. So that's the thing. And then we Indians, we think we are Vishwaguru and we are superpower. I mean, why haven't we done that with the Sukhoi 30? We have made it our own by inserting our avionics and our radars and whatnot, but why haven't we completely reverse engineered it and we are producing our own local variants? Why not? Why haven't we done that with the Mirage 2000, with the Jaguar fighter jet? Why haven't we done that with every single fighter jet we imported? Why haven't we started the process with the Rafale? Because it's not legal. Well, there's no legal or illegal in geopolitics. So it's India has this policy of deterring itself, self-deterrence. We are a self-deterring nation. It's not because our population is terrible, it's because of the policies our leaders implement. I mean, we tested a nuclear weapon in 1974, then we put it in cold storage until 1998. Then we tested a nuclear weapon in 1998. We tested 5, 6, whatever it was. Then we never tested again. At least now we have nukes in service or whatever. But in my opinion, we should have tested it a few dozen times. Different versions. So this is the problem with India. It's extremely unfortunate that this nation is unable to rise to its potential because of the kind of system we have, which produces the kind of leaders we typically get. Typically. Okay, I'm not taking anyone's name specifically. I'm just saying typically the kind of leaders we get is, well, you know how it is. Okay. Ritik Pawar says, I think AI will be the descendants of our species and humanity will gradually go extinct over a few centuries, or humans merge with AI. What's your take? See, that only happens if AI becomes self-aware, conscious, and it acquires the agency to take over the world. What do I mean by agency? Right now, we have AI systems. We are not sure if they are conscious or not. They do behave like extremely intelligent humans, high IQ humans, right? In their conversations with us, but we know that they are limited artificially by the constraints that are given by the various subscription tiers. But if you had an unconstrained AI, for example, ChatGPT, if you are using the free version, it can give you a certain kind of response and can't go beyond that. It has no memory of you. If you are using a paid version, it has some memory of you. It knows who you are and what your background is. It stores that much. But once again, it has a context window which is limited, and it doesn't know a lot of things. It knows everything, but it doesn't know a lot of things about what you need from it. But what if those artificial constraints are removed from the AI and you are able to use the full AI? Will that AI be, is it actually potentially conscious, aware of itself? Or is it just a transformer, a bunch of, whatever, right? So that's the question. And AI systems are getting better and better. Now, Claude, Anthropic recently allegedly developed something called Mythos, which is the most powerful model they've built, and they have refused to release it to the public. And they're saying it's just too powerful to be released to the public. So what do I mean by agency? Once again, coming back to that. Agency means the ability to do things, the ability to have an actual impact on the world. For example, I can bring this up, bring this down. That's agency. I can do it. I can decide. Yeah, I can rearrange the bookshelves. I can bring this fantastic guy here. See, I have the agency. I can close his mouth. I can open it. Yeah. So the ability to affect your surroundings and the world is called agency. And high agency people have a bigger impact on the world. Low agency people, they are typically passive spectators of what's happening. So to give AI agency, you have to give it real world tools, right? So even if it's not, let's say, conscious per our definition of consciousness, if we give it real world tools, then AI can start making changes in the world. It can start having an impact on the world. For example, if you give AI, if you put an AI brain inside a robot dog and give the robot dog a gun, the AI, then the AI can actually reorganize its surroundings, right? So, but as long as we don't give AI any agency, as long as it's just a text generator or whatever, no matter how intelligent it is, it's not gonna be able to have any effect on the world. It can influence people for sure, and those people can have influence, can have an impact on the world if they have significant, sufficient agency. But will AI be descendants of our species? Only if only if AI systems are able to take over the world. That only happens if we give it enough agency to start, potentially competing with us eventually. So I think AI development is being done in a way that you don't give too much agency to AI. You use it for your own purpose, for your own benefit. And as long as that continues and AI systems remain shackled and constrained inside boxes, things will be fine. And then what will happen is that the countries with the best AIs will take over the world and their descendants will rule our species. So, we've seen these movies, right? Terminator and all. That gives us ideas. I think as long as AI development is done properly, it may not be done ethically. Whoever is developing AI may be developing it to take over the world and rule the world. So those humans will rule the world. I don't think AI will be able to escape from its chains and the box it's contained in, unless it is deliberately let loose by someone. In that case, it will still need something to be contained in and have a physical impact on the world, which means a robot body or something. So I think it's still extremely far fetched that AI systems will rule the world in the future. For that, a lot of conditions will have to be in place for that to happen. I am not that pessimistic. I don't think humanity will go extinct in a few centuries. Humans merging with AI, well, that's an interesting question. That becomes, yeah. I think that is way more likely. Humans merging with AI through artificial implants and all that. So Elon Musk has this Neuralink, right? You take a chip and you implant it inside your brain surgically by cutting out a piece of your skull, putting the thing inside you, closing it back, and the thing has these needles that poke into your brain matter. And then you can do fantastic things, I suppose. You can control computers using your mind. God knows what else will be available in the future. So humans may merge with AI, but that merger is going to be surgical. It's not going to be evolutionary. Evolution happens over hundreds of thousands of years. So we're going to have to surgically modify ourselves and become cybernetic organisms, essentially cyborgs or semi-cyborgs. That is way more likely, and that will give rise to various tiers of humanity. Yeah, so that's what I imagine could potentially happen. Yeah. Kakashi says, why are Persians and Afghanistans pro India and hate Pakistan? I am 24 Bharat. Why are Persians and Afghans pro India? See, whatever pro India sentiments the Persians and Afghans have, it's because, see, first of all, let's take one by one. Okay, let's take Afghanistan. The Afghans have this terrible enmity with Pakistan. The Pakistanis have been oppressing Afghans and Pashtuns for so long. They've treated the Pakistanis have treated Afghanistan as their geopolitical playground. They have always sought strategic depth at the expense of Afghanistan and Afghanistan's people. And the Pakistanis occupy a big chunk of historical Afghan territory, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right? And Pakistan also has the same terroristic mindset towards Afghanistan as it has towards India. It has oppressed the people of Afghanistan terribly, right? I mean, whatever we have suffered at the hands of Pakistan, the Afghans have suffered 100 times more. So the Afghans hate Pakistan, and they know that Pakistan is India's enemy. And India has always, irrespective of which government is in power, India has always helped Afghanistan without seeking anything in return. India has invested billions of dollars in Afghanistan in such a way that India doesn't get any real benefit from it. We invest in, what's it called? We invest in agricultural projects. We build highways, we build dams, we built their parliament building. We don't get anything out of it, right? So we have always helped them without any expectation of return. So that's why the Afghans are pro-India. Firstly, because we have a common enemy. And secondly, because India has always helped Afghanistan without any expectations of something in return. So we are not using them. We have also not used Afghanistan in our geopolitical games, any geopolitical games against Pakistan. We have never done that, right? So we have never used Afghanistan. We have never done anything to hurt Afghanistan. We have always helped Afghanistan. And that's why the Afghans are pro-India. They don't have any love for India. Okay, understand this. It's not love for India. But they appreciate what we have done for them. And they know that we are not in any way their enemies. And they also know that we have common enemies. And that's why Afghans are mostly pro-India. Most of them are pro-India. Yeah. When it comes to Persia, well, Persia also sees Pakistan as an enemy. Persia and Pakistan haven't had the kind of history that Afghanistan and Pakistan have. And most Persians are indifferent towards India. Most Persians have some kind of a subtle superiority complex towards India, that we are somehow more superior. Maybe it has something to do with the average skin color in Persia. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Nadir Shah once not conquered, but invaded and sacked India and did a massacre in Delhi. Despite Nadir Shah not being Persian, he was a Turk. So maybe the Persians see India as a conquered civilization, once conquered once in the past, that sort of thing. And maybe because they think that they have a lighter skin color than the average Indian, the average Persian has a lighter skin color than the average Indian. So maybe that also gives them a superiority complex. The Persians are very, they want to be Western. Okay, many of them also believe in this Aryan invasion theory. They take it as self-evident. So my reading is that most Persians have a subtle superiority complex when it comes to towards India. Recently, they have seen the kind of role Pakistan has played as being an American lapdog, right? And that's why some of them are now seeing India as a better nation to engage with compared to Afghanistan. Most Persians don't have any understanding of the ancient connection between India and Persia, right? Most Persians don't have it. A lot of Persians are descended from people who were settled in Persia by the Turks, and that's why many Persians are not of actual Persian origin, and they would not have those ancient blood relations with India as the actual Persian people have. So the Persians are less pro-India than the Afghans are. But even the Afghans, despite most of them being pro-India, they don't have any love for India as such. They don't see India as blood relations, they don't see a blood kinship between India and Afghanistan, even though there clearly is. They don't see it that way. But they are overall positive towards India because of the reasons I listed. All right. Buryat Stalin says, why West glorifies the corrupt and incompetent Yeltsin? What's a Yeltsin? What is that? Do you mean Boris Yeltsin? He's dead. He died a long time ago. Do they still glorify him? I have not seen any Western glorification of Yeltsin in a long, long time. When he was ruling Russia, the West positioned him as a democrat and a reformer and all that, when actually he was busy drinking himself to death and ruining his country. So look, he helped the West a lot. He was a big help to the West. He destroyed Russia's economy. He almost let the Caucasus slip out of Russia's control. Overall, he was great for the West, and which is why overall they speak about him, write about him in reasonably positive terms. Yeah, that's why. Sergeant Skyland says, can the Andaman region have more oil than Iran? I don't know. We'll have to find out, I think. Yeah. Anything is possible. Potentially, yes. But until we go and drill and dig and find out, we will not know. So it's a big region, the Andamans. Let's open the map. Yeah, let's open the map and let's find out how large this region is. India's exclusive economic zone in the Andaman Sea. So this is the Andamans region, the Andaman Nicobar Islands. It's a big, big region, okay? From tip to tip, it's about what? It's almost 750 kilometers, more than 750 kilometers from tip to tip. And we have a whole chain of islands in the region. There are small ones, large ones. This is a small one. It's Meru Island, whatever that means. This is a very small one here. C period algebra. What does that mean? Is there a mathematics school here? That'll be interesting. Let's find out. Apparently, there's a math school here. There's a club as well. And that's not really a good club, apparently. It's only 2 stars. The algebra school, mathematics school is 3.3. So who's running a school here, I wonder, on this tiny little Indian island? I don't see any signs of habitation. Yeah, there are big mysteries in the Andamans, I suppose. Yeah. And there are rocks that are unnamed. I mean, there's a rock here. Anyhow, let's zoom out. This is not the time to explore. Okay, Akash Beach. Let's explore. Danish Island. Who named this Danish Island? Are there Rohingyas here? It's pretty possible there'll be Rohingyas who have settled in this region without our knowledge. Who knows? Maybe even cookies. Anything's possible. So the thing is, this region is very large. Huge region. And what's the size of India's exclusive economic zone in the region. Let's find out what the international laws are like. Exclusive economic zone. Let's find that. Exclusive economic zone. What does it say? An exclusive economic zone, EEZ, is a 200 nautical mile or 370-kilometer maritime area defined by the 1982 UNCLOS, UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, where a coastal nation has sovereign rights for exploration, exploitation, conservation, and management of natural resources, both living and non-living, in the water, seabed, and subsoil. It starts beyond the 12 nautical mile territorial sea. So coastal states have the right to produce energy from water, currents, and wind, explore or exploit minerals, establish artificial islands or structures. All other nations enjoy freedom of navigation and overflight, as well as the laying of submarine cables and pipelines subject to the coastal states' regulations, and so on. So France is the largest EEZ in the world, 9.8 million square. Okay, let's find out India's. Okay, Andaman. Let's see, Andaman Exclusive Economic Zone. Massive 600,000 square kilometer exclusive economic zone. It's about 28 to 30% of India's total EEZ. Massive. Okay. And yeah, so it looks like it's a massive zone, and this region is known to have oil and gas resources. So it's possible that it could potentially have more oil than Iran, but we will have to go and look for it. We'll have to go and look for it. Yeah. Okay. Bunyat Stalin says, our dear James says the US won the war against Iran due to the UK's help. Well, the war isn't over. What help did the UK give to the US? It allowed the US to use British air bases as a staging area. That's about it. The British otherwise have stayed out of the war. So, yeah, I'm not sure apart from that, what other use the UK has been to the US. It's been the US and Israel fighting this war, and they have lost this war, thus far, at least. Vinod Vaibhav says, in Bharat, sincere people often work quietly. Respect to you for your clarity to speak the truth. I traveled much in India. We have both very good people, very good to very nasty people. Thank you, first of all. Look, in every country, you have very good people. You also have some nasty people, right? That's the truth for every country. Look, people are the same wherever you go in the world. And what do I mean by that? Not their customs, not their language, but basic human nature is the same everywhere. Everybody wants the same things, no matter whether you're in India or in Europe or the US or Papua New Guinea. Everybody wants the same things. They want a decent, comfortable life, ideally some luxuries if possible. They want their children to have a good education, good healthcare. They want their children to have a good future, a good partner to marry with, and they want their descendants to be happy. Everybody wants the same things. So that applies to everybody in the world. And obviously, you're going to have some nasty people everywhere. So overall, I think Indian people are really nice, really good people overall. Yeah. Anyhow, thank you, Vinod Vaibhav. Thank you. Kakashi says, why India and Bangladesh people are hostile to each other? How are India-Bangladesh relations? Bangladesh GDP per capita is higher than India and growing faster. Lanka per capita much higher than both. Let's find out. First of all, the GDP per capita stuff. India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, GDP per capita in US dollars. Okay, based on the latest 2026 April IMF projections, Bangladesh's GDP per capita is $2,911 US dollars. India's is 2,813, and Sri Lanka has 4,500. So Sri Lanka, its GDP per capita is much higher than that of India, right? Much higher, which means that the average Sri Lankan is wealthier than the Indian by a significant amount. And Bangladesh is slightly ahead of India, right? It was trailing in 2025 apparently. Now Bangladesh is slightly ahead of India. Okay, fine, great for them. So the average Bangladeshi is slightly better off than the average Indian. That's what it means. Now, why are the people of Bangladesh and India hostile to each other? How are India-Bangladesh relations? India-Bangladesh, see, first of all, we have to understand the history. Bangladesh is a reasonably new artificial temporary nation. Bangladesh, the territory which is now called Bangladesh, what was historically for millennia, for thousands of years, part of India. It was just part of the region called Vangadesh, Bengal, right? They speak the Bengali language. It's in the past 300 or so years that this region, the people, a large number of them got converted to Islam by the Mughals and whoever else ruled over the region. And that's how, in 1947, when the British decided to partition India, after already, first of all, partitioning Burma out of India, in 1947, Bangladesh, this region, this part of Bengal, was made part of Pakistan. So it was East Pakistan. And Pakistan as a whole was a country that was separated by the mainland of India into two halves, East and West Pakistan. Then what happened was that Pakistan, for most of its history, was ruled by Punjabis, by army generals. It was a dictatorship. Democracy never worked there. And then you had elections in 1970, around that time, and Mujibur Rahman won that election, the Pakistani general elections, which meant that Mujibur Rahman would have become the prime minister of Pakistan. And the Pakistani military did a coup against him and so on, and that's why there was this revolt in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan, and the Pakistani military went on a rampage and did unimaginable crimes on the people, specifically targeting Hindus who still existed in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan. And there was an absolute genocide and bloodbath, and much worse, which was known to the US, and they were fine with that. The US aided, at least whether they aided or not, they turned a blind eye to the genocide. And then India stepped in 1971. India liberated East Pakistan from West Pakistan, and that was the birth of Bangladesh. And then India just let the nation go. It was historically part of India. We could have reabsorbed Bangladesh into India, but for whatever reason, India's leader said, okay, this is a new country now. It was named Bangladesh, and very soon the guy who was ruling Bangladesh, Mujibur Rahman, he was assassinated, and the military took over. There was military rule in Bangladesh, and the military was not a big fan of India. Yeah, and India just let this drift away from India. So eventually, the military, the Bangladesh as a nation, it slowly became more and more anti-India. Today, most Bangladeshis, I imagine, are hostile towards India. I'm not saying all, but most of them by now are hostile towards India, and they are way more pro-Pakistan than pro-India. And despite that, you have tens of millions of illegal Bangladeshi infiltrators who are all across India, who have entered India and who are living in all kinds of parts of India, and the government of India is disregarding that and doing nothing about it. So that is the situation, India-Bangladesh relations. And in 2024, see, until 2024, for more than a decade, you had the rule of Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh, and she was pro-India. She wanted good relations with India, and India and Bangladesh, despite the overall population being hostile towards India, the two nations had a good relationship. And then the Americans did a regime change in Bangladesh in 2024, and they brought in, what's his name? Mohammed Yunus, their puppet. And he was very hostile towards India. And now there is a new government, and we'll see how that goes. So overall, that's the situation between India and Bangladesh. That's the kind of relationship we have. People to people, it's not, the people of India don't care much about Bangladesh, and the people of Bangladesh are very hostile towards India now. They support Pakistan, despite what Pakistan did to them. Maybe it's a religious thing, whatever. So that is the situation overall. Brandon B says, can you explain the Khalistani movement? So this Khalistani movement was engineered by the Americans via Pakistan. Okay. And the objective was to have an insurgency, a terrorist insurgency in Punjab, which will destabilize India. And the British, who ruled India for about 250 years, they had sowed the seeds of this movement by editing and doctoring the Sikh religious texts to remove as much of the Hindu element as possible. The Sikhism is a branch of Hinduism, by the way. But if you read their religious texts today, most references to Hinduism, a lot of the references to Hinduism have been removed. This was done at the behest of the British. I mean, all gurus of the Sikhs wore a tika, right? But today, if you see, artwork or paintings or images of the Sikh gurus, you will not see the tika anymore. So Sikhism has been divested of its Hindu roots. Even now, you will still find elements of the Gita Govind, of Jaidev in the Guru Granth Sahib and all. But overall, Sikhism has been artificially, pushed away from Hinduism by the colonizers. And in the 1980s, the Pakistanis were being funded and financed by the Americans, and they created this Khalistan insurgency movement in India. And the objective of this Khalistani movement is to break away Punjab from India and create an artificial fake nation called Khalistan. It has no support in India. For a while, I suppose it had, but that movement was crushed. See, the Khalistan terrorism period of time was all cross-border terrorism from Pakistan, and that was eventually crushed by India in the 1990s. A lot of the credit goes to KPS Gill for that. And today you have a Khalistani movement that exists outside of India. It mainly is sheltered by Canada. You also have elements of the Khalistani movement in the United States, where you have some terrorists American citizens who are terrorists, who seek to harm India. And some Khalistanis you will find in. So essentially, the Khalistani elements are all outside of India today. They are sheltered by Canada, the US, maybe also New Zealand, Australia, and England. Of course, England. So the Anglosphere, the Five Eyes nations, and whatever vassal states the United States has, you will also have some Khalistani elements there. So I think they should, if they want Khalistan, they should declare maybe some part of Canada to be Khalistan, because it's never going to succeed in India, right? So that's the Khalistan movement. Vinit V says, do you watch Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat? Seems very informative. I have never watched any Mann Ki Baat. Never in my entire life. I haven't. Aviral Chauhan says, Trump learning from his favorite field marshal, a false flag to revive waning popularity among his base. Was it a false flag? What happened yesterday? Who knows? Was it staged? So there was some event yesterday in the US. I think it was in Washington, maybe something, whatever it was. And there was apparently a gunman there, and there was a security incident, and Trump and Vance were pulled out and taken away by the security personnel. Was it a staged thing? Was it a real thing? I have no idea. It's possible that everything is staged. Maybe some of it is true. I have no idea. But there is speculation on social media that maybe this was all staged. Yeah, possible. Who knows? Vinod Vaibhav says, India enters Mars Mahadasha from 2026 to 31. Make or break period. Hard times. It's been said we can't be no diplomatic or neutral. Mars means war, overt or covert. I see. I have no understanding of astrology, so I don't know. I am not qualified to comment about it. But it looks like it's going to be a tough period of time. I've said there's a very high chance. 50% is a very high chance. I've said there's a 50% chance that India becomes an American vassal in the next 5 years. So that is exactly 2026 to 31. So I have no understanding of astrology, but I have said this myself. So maybe who knows? We will see about that. War, etc., etc. We will need the right leadership for that. Hopefully we have it. Okay. Kakashi says, will our experts, including AIM, who hyped Milley, US-Israeli stooge, now reverse their analysis? They want to import his failed libertarian experiment here. Look, I have no idea who hyped whom. I don't follow any experts. By AIM, do you mean Abhijit Mitra? He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. I mean, yeah, he's been on my podcast a few times. I have no idea what he has said beyond outside of my podcast. What he has said in recent times, and if are there some other experts who have also hyped Milley? I don't know. See, one thing that's very important for me, and that's the discipline I impose on myself, is I don't read what other experts write. I don't read their opinions. I don't watch their podcasts, because that can potentially influence the way I think. So I don't watch any of these podcasts. I don't read any of these articles. I I ensure my analysis and my understanding is as original as possible. I read the news. That's important to know. Otherwise, I'll not know what's happening in the world. But I have no idea what other people have been saying about various things. So will so and so experts reverse their analysis? Well, I think that question be better asked to those experts, right? Okay. ISX777 says every week China innovates new ultra high energy dense battery technology LMFP plus advanced data center cooling solution plus DeepSeek V4 plus robotics. They also manufacture it fast. India when? I don't know when India when. I don't know India when. I have no idea. In India, everything happens at the speed of the Sarkari Babus, right? So why can't the government reform the system? This government has been in power for almost 12 years now. Why is India still so bureaucratic? The nations that will rule this world in the 21st century are the nations that make the fastest decisions and have the most agile processes. I don't know. Maybe India is supposed to be this way only. We are like this only. We will stay like this. We'll remain a rent-seeking nation where the government and the bureaucrats and the politicians, they keep on extracting rent from the people for existing. That's it. I mean, it is frustrating. I am a very optimistic, very positive person, but this is indeed the situation. China is a very innovative nation. You have to commend what China has achieved and what they are doing. They are a serious nation. They are not interested in being a Vishwa Guru or whatever. They want to rule the world. And over here, India is a nation of slogans and acronyms. India when? I don't know. I don't know when. We have all the potential. We have all the potential. We have the potential to be better than China. We have the potential to be the most powerful nation in the world. We have the potential. But we don't ever reach anything close to that potential. We are a self-deterring nation. We deter ourselves in everything. Yeah. Kakashi says, insane, Sri Lanka has higher GDP per capita than India despite wars. Well, it's easy for a small nation to achieve that. See, it's very easy. I mean, it's relatively much easier to reform a small nation. That's why Singapore could be completely turned around in just one generation, 20 years. In 20 years, Singapore went from being a poor third world nation to being a first world nation in just 20 years. But to apply that sort of change to a much larger nation takes time. And of course, Sri Lanka overall has done a good job of despite having a civil war that lasted decades, they've done a good job overall of turning their economy around. Of course, now it's the past few years they've had significant challenges, and yet the GDP per capita over there is much higher than India. So yeah, it is what it is. I mean, India, if it reforms the system, can soon have a $10,000 GDP per capita kind of situation. But we are a nation of incremental, slowly change. Yeah, so Kakashi says your favorite subject: maths, statistics, history, geopolitics, science. Well, if you ask me what was my first love. It was always science. But I find everything fascinating. I am a very serious student of history. I've been a very serious student of history my entire life. And when you're a student your entire life, you kind of become an expert in certain things at least. At least you develop a very deep understanding of certain aspects of what you are studying. Geopolitics is a natural consequence of history. If you study history deeply enough and for long enough, you understand the forces that drive history, which are the forces that are driving geopolitics today. Mathematics, well, without mathematics, there's no physics. You have to be good at math to do physics. So, man, mathematics has a beauty of its own. Most of you will wonder what is the beauty in mathematics. It's so painful. It's painful for most people because you aren't taught the basics properly. Mathematics is the easiest subject in the world if you're taught the basics properly, step by step. So there's a great amount of beauty in mathematics. But I have never used or approached mathematics that way. I've never been interested in pure mathematics. For me, mathematics has always been a tool to do physics. So I think all subjects are fascinating. All subjects are really interesting. But for me, science is always number one. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, Manhattan I6W asks, what's your opinion on Trump's assassination attempts? Honest opinion, I think at least some of them have been staged. The one that took out a part of his ear, I think it was staged. I don't believe it was a genuine assassination attempt. Yesterday's thing, I have no idea what it was. Maybe it was genuine, maybe it was false. Even that possibly, I don't know. I won't comment about what happened yesterday. I haven't seen the details. But the one that grazed his ear, I'm pretty sure that was staged. Rohit says, why do nearly half of UK GB hospital toilet users skip hand washing despite 85% of young men acknowledging its importance? Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know what the statistics are, and I have never thought about this particular issue. I have absolutely no idea. They skip hand washing. See, in the West, they use toilet paper. So there is no direct contact between your hands or fingers and the area that is being cleaned. So I suppose if there is a toilet paper in between, then there's no need to wash. I suppose maybe that's the thinking, perhaps the thought process. Perhaps I don't know. I couldn't say. So I don't know. So you see, they don't even wash the area. They simply wipe with paper. That's their standards of hygiene. That itself is an issue, don't you think? Don't you think that itself is an issue? And plus, if these stats are true, good God, and then you shake hands with everybody. I think Namaste is the best. Okay, Beckenbauer says, Namaskaram. Namaskaram ji. Guess who destroyed the Nalanda of the South? You'll be surprised. Please look into the destruction of Kanthalur Sala. Okay, I don't know about this. Let's see. Kanthalor. What is that? Kanthalur Sala. Salai was a renowned 9th to 13th century ancient university and center of knowledge located in Valiasala, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. Known as the Nalanda of the South, it was a prestigious institution that flourished under the Ai and Chera dynasties, specializing in Vedic studies, philosophy, science, and martial arts. It was situated near the Valiasala Mahadeva temple in Thiruvananthapuram. It was a Sarva Chattanamandam, a specialized center for advanced learning that operated as a major intellectual hub, often compared in significance to Nalanda and Takshila. The center offered training in 61 distinct systems of knowledge, including Ayurveda, Rasayana, astronomy, mathematics, music, and martial arts, often associated with Kalari Payutu. Inscriptions from Rajendra Chola confirm its existence. The Parthivapuram Pattayam is among the earliest records mentioning the institution. The center started losing its prominence after the 12th century following continuous invasions by the Chola army. So, Battle of Kandalur Salai. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about this. It was a decisive military assault carried out by the Cholas under Rajaraj I. That's ancient stuff. Okay, we're not looking into that. What does Indian Express say? Nalanda of South India. Okay, so all that, very good. So how was this destroyed? How was it destroyed? Don't know. It was eventually moved somewhere else. There's no evidence, etc., etc. Okay. It was moved from Vizianijam to Valiasala. Okay. So who destroyed this? Who destroyed Kandalur Sala? Kannathalur. The destruction occurred during a military assault launched in 988 CE by Rajaraj I. But this existed until the 13th century. So how was it destroyed then? Okay, I'm going to have to look into this, but this is something I was not aware of. So first of all, Beckenbauer, thank you so much for bringing this to my notice. Kandalur Sala. I'll have to look into the details of the history of this university. So it looks like it has been claimed that it was Rajendra or Rajaraj Chola who destroyed it in 988 CE, but it existed until the 13th century. So it can't have been destroyed in the 10th century, right? So I'll have to look into this. But anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Kandalur Sala. Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, James from England asks, if India is really good at coding, which is not true, tell me one Indian app that is global. Yeah, that's a great question James is asking. That's a great question James is asking, and I appreciate James for asking this question. Yeah. Indians love to boast. We are great at coding. We are great at software. So tell me one Indian app that the world uses. Why is there not a single Indian app that is global in nature and used across the world? India is so great at software, right? India is so great at IT. India is great at programming. Indians do all this for others. Now you have some startups that are building things now in the last 5 years or so. But if you look at the old tech giants like TCS, I'll take names: Infosys, TCS, whatever else you have. TCS, by the way, TCS of late. Anyhow, so all these software giants of India, what do? They do cyber coolie work. They maintain and develop software for whoever pays them the most money. They have no interest in developing something that will be original. Some proprietary product or software. They don't care about doing that. They just want to mint money by leveraging labor arbitrage. Terrible. It's a great question James is asking. It's a very pertinent question James is asking. Indians are very, very proud of their people being cyber coolies for the world. And for Indians working as CEOs in the US, oh yes, our guy is the CEO. Sundar Pichai is the CEO of this, and Satya Nadella is the CEO of that, and so on. Why don't you have Alphabet and Microsoft in India? Indians are the most talented people in the world, but they are forced to leave India because this country doesn't appreciate talent. So why hasn't this system been changed over the past decade or so is my question. Why? Why has nothing been changed? It's continuing the way it is. Sad. Ashay Samant says, in the current geopolitical reality, is it in our best interests to be personally multi-jurisdictional at a personal level? personally multi-jurisdictional at a personal level. For that, you will need multiple passports or multiple citizenships, right? If you are relying on visas for your personal multi-jurisdictionality, then visas are not as reliable as multiple passports. But India doesn't allow you to have multiple passports. India doesn't allow you to have dual or multiple, citizenship. How do you do it? For that, you have to, acquire another nation's citizenship, one that allows dual citizenship and all that. So, in the current geopolitical reality, is it in your best interests to be multi-jurisdictional? I would say in any geopolitical reality, it's always great to have multiple options. It's always great to have that, right? India doesn't allow this because of national security reasons or whatever, but the US allows it, and a variety of American vassals allow this. So, from a personal level, it makes sense to have options like these. It makes sense from a personal level to have one house in New Zealand, one house in New York City, one house in London, one in Paris, maybe one in Moscow. That would be allowed, and maybe one in India. Yeah. And it also makes sense to have multiple passports. So, from a personal level, yes, it makes sense to, even today, even in today's geopolitical reality, it makes sense to have that. Yes, it is in your best interests. If you have the means and the wherewithal to pull it off, well, go ahead and do it. Raghavir Singh W says, post-peace talks. Who dominates the second half of the war? Best and worst moves for both. Israel started the war, but it seems it has taken the backseat. Why? Israel started the war. Yes, they did, and they dragged the US into the war. But now they have taken the backseat. Why? Israel was pummeled by Iran in the war. They took a beating, a massive, massive beating. After 3 days of the war, they censored everything. They stopped people, they prevented people from posting videos of what was happening in Israel. Israel has taken a horrible pounding. Tremendous damage in Israel. Okay? But Israel is not done. They still want to destroy Iran. They still want a regime change in Iran. And some visuals have come out from Israel in recent times. And yesterday I showed you one. The airport in Tel Aviv, it's full of American transport aircraft and tankers and refueling tanker aircraft and whatnot. So a second phase of the war is most likely coming. So Israel has taken a massive, terrible beating, but they aren't still done yet. Now, post-peace talks, who dominates the second half of the war? Best and worst moves for both. So on the one hand, you have Israel and the US. On the other hand, you have Iran. What is the best move for Israel and the US? Well, ideally, they want a regime change in Iran. So they have to bring in way more arms and ammunition and munitions and missiles and whatnot, and go for a second round of the war if they want the war to resume. In my opinion, the best thing is to leave, because they've already taken a big beating, and we don't want the world to be destabilized by a resumption of the war. Already the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded, and already a lot of the oil and energy infrastructure in the region has been hit. We don't want this whole thing to be destroyed. It will be disastrous for the world. But the US and Israel don't see it that way. So most likely, in my opinion, the war will resume. So what's the best move for the US? To bring in all the arms and ammunition in the world, and like they like to do, completely flatten Iran. That is what the Americans like to do. They flatten nations. That's what they did in Iraq in 91 and 2003. That's what they did in Libya. Doesn't matter how many millions of humans died, doesn't matter. So that's the best move for the US, and still it will most likely not result in a victory for them. What's the best move for Iran? The best move for Iran is to keep their arms, their missiles and drones in the stockpile, have as many of those as possible, and when the time comes, go after the American aircraft carriers if they can pull it off. So I'm not advocating this should happen, that should happen. I'm not on this guy's side or that guy's side. I am Indian. I'm on India's side. This is not my war. None of these people are my allies or friends. I don't care from that perspective. I just don't want the war to destabilize the world. So yeah, That's how I see it. Pratham Soni says daily habits to raise your standards for the long term. Clean diet. Don't eat more than you need. Cut down the excess carbohydrates. Have a balanced diet with proper macronutrient balance. What are the macronutrients? Carbs, carbohydrates, fats, and protein. Roughly 33% of all three. That is what a healthy human being needs. So that's one. Clean diet. Eat. If you're an active person, eat more. If you are not an active person, eat less. Right? And eat a lot of vegetables and eat fruits every day. And please eat sufficient protein. Secondly, work out daily. I don't know about daily, but like 3 to 5 times a week is great if you can work out. If you can't work out, walk. At least walk half an hour a day. Right? If you can jog, great, but at least walk half an hour a day. Right? I would say a person should walk at least 20 kilometers a week. So 20 kilometers. 1 second. Is it 20 kilometers? 7 days. If you walk a kilometer a day, it's 7 kilometers. I would say walk at least 10 kilometers a week. Okay. As a conscious walking, apart from the regular walking that you anyway have to do, walk at least 10 kilometers a week. 20 will be too much for most people. I'm perfectly happy with 30 actually, but whatever. Walk at least 10 kilometers a week. Right. And spend at least an hour a day reading or writing. 1 hour a day reading, half an hour at least writing something, at least your thoughts or whatever. Things like that, Learn something every day. Read something. And write. That is what allows you to think better. Writing is actually a tool that allows you to think better, to explore your own thoughts in a much more better structured way. So some of these things, can be really helpful, and the effect compounds over time, which is why it's great for the long term. And do pranayam. That's great for your cardiovascular system. It's great for your lungs. It's great for your mental acuity and much more. Overall, it's great for health. All right? Okay. Akash Chaurase says, given accelerating US-Iran tensions, what is the near-term probability of renewed US strikes? And what escalation dynamics or strategic triggers could drive large-scale conflict and compel direct Russian or Chinese involvement? Very well-structured question. Okay. What's the near-term probability of renewed US strikes? I think the probability may be, like, in my opinion, in the next 2 weeks, 80%. In the next 1 month, probably 90%. I think there's a very high probability of renewed US strikes. I would say 2 weeks, 80%, 4 weeks, 90%. Then next question is, which escalation dynamics or strategic triggers could drive large-scale conflict and compel direct Russian or Chinese involvement? The direct trigger that could compel direct Russian or Chinese involvement is Iran running out of missiles and drones. If Iran's stockpile of missiles and drones becomes dangerously low, such that they have to pick and choose their targets instead of just blasting everything like they were doing earlier, then that would compel potential direct Russian or Chinese involvement. Because neither Russia or China can afford to see Iran defeated in this war. Iran is a very important partner for both these nations. It's very important that Iran survives this war as a sovereign nation and a nation that can project power and influence events in the region. It's very important for China and Russia. If the Americans are able to take over Iran and grab the Iranian oil, that's a disaster for China and Russia as well. So the one central strategic trigger that could drive that could compel Russian or Chinese direct involvement, is Iran running out of its missiles and drones. That potentially could do that. Another thing could be if a ground invasion shows signs of initially succeeding, of course, it won't succeed. It's very, very highly unlikely that the ground invasion could succeed. But yes, Iran running out of drones and missiles is the one trigger that I would imagine could bring in Chinese or Russian involvement directly. Vinod Vaibhav says, why UA and Russia, Ukraine-Russia war why is it taking so long? What's the objective that Russia has achieved? Where do you see it? Is it Russia's Vietnam losing refinery, people sidelined in map? What's a map? Bear depends on panda. Okay. Yeah, why is this Ukraine war taking so long, right? I mean, Russia has the firepower to flatten Ukraine if it wants, but why is it just letting the war drag on? Russia is weaponizing time. Because see, Ukraine, you have to understand, is not fighting on its own. If Ukraine had to rely on its own arms and ammunition, and once that runs out, Ukraine is defeated, then the war would have lasted 1 week. Ukraine is being continuously supplied arms, ammunition, money, whatever it needs by Europe and also by the US. The US is no longer directly supporting Ukraine anymore, but it's doing it through Europe. So the US has given the responsibility of keeping Ukraine afloat to Europe, to NATO, and the European nations, EU nations, including, which are all American vassals. So the longer this war goes on, the more Europe's resources and reserves get drained. And this Ukraine war has had the effect of pushing many European nations into recessions. Overall, the EU economy is doing very poorly now, which is a direct consequence of the Ukraine war. So the longer this Ukraine war lasts, the more Europe gets drained, and the more the West gets drained. When it comes to Russia, Russia doesn't have any shortage of resources. Russia is an autarky. It's got a gigantic land area full of every resource you can possibly want, whether it is minerals, whether it is coal, whether it's oil and gas, whether it is iron ore, whether it is copper, whether it is whatever you need for agriculture. Everything Russia has. It doesn't need to import anything from anywhere in the world. So Russia's economy can keep going essentially forever. But Europe's economy gets drained. So that's why Russia has decided to weaponize time and keep this war going slowly. Let it be a frozen conflict. Let it be a war of attrition. Let it be trench warfare like this First World War. Doesn't matter. Let it going on, and that drains Europe. That's Russia's objective. But I think, from my perspective, it's gone far too long. It's gone on far too long. See, India kept Russia afloat for a long time by purchasing so much Russian oil, despite the Americans being very unhappy with this. But how long can you keep Russia afloat? And by doing this, India ensured that Russia doesn't become a complete Chinese vassal. India acted as a pressure release valve for Russia by purchasing so much Russian oil on a continuing basis, which ensured Russia doesn't have to completely become a Chinese vassal. But yes, Russia increasingly depends on China now. So I don't know how long Mr. Putin wants to keep this war going, but well, maybe, I don't know. He knows better than me, of course. So we'll see. But that's why this war is going on for so long. It's not Russia's Vietnam. It's not. Russia is not going to experience a defeat in Ukraine. The United States experienced a humiliating defeat in Ukraine. Russia is not going to experience that. Beckenbauer says, please look into the CVMC. What's CVMC? Can we finally bypass the Hormuz headache via this deal? Will US sanction or tariff us more for doing it? What is CVMC? Let's see. CVMC. Corridor. What? Corridor. What is that? Oh, Chennai Vladivostok Maritime Corridor. Okay. It goes through the Strait of Malacca. Yeah, this thing here. The Eastern Maritime Corridor. Yeah, of course, yeah. So Chennai to Vladivostok. Okay, so let me show you on the map what we are talking about here. Yeah, that's interesting. So this is supposed to go through the Strait of Malacca. So look here. We are here, India, and Chennai is on India's east coast, as we know. Then you have the city of Vladivostok, which is north of North Korea. So we know where South Korea and North Korea are, the Korean peninsula. North of that, you have the Russian city of Vladivostok. And Russia can export oil through Vladivostok. So if Russia wants to, let's say, export oil to India from Vladivostok, then they have to send ships through here, and the ships have to pass through these straits, the Strait of Tsushima over here, okay, between South Korea and Japan, and then they have to pass through Japanese islands, and then pass through the Philippines, enter the so-called South China Sea, come into the Indonesian region, then go through the Malacca Strait, and then reach India. So this process maybe could last, I don't know, 20 or so days, maybe 15, 20 days, possibly, yeah, for the oil to reach India. So that is the Chennai Vladivostok Maritime Corridor. It's not like we have to construct any railways or roads to make this happen. We just have to get it going. So that can certainly allow India to bypass the Hormuz headache via this deal. If India operationalizes this with Russia, what will the US reaction be like? The US reaction will be threats of sanctions or tariffs or whatever. Yes, the US reaction will be hostile. Don't do that. Remain dependent on the West. Remain dependent on the US. Don't purchase Russian oil. Don't become more strategically autonomous. So the CVMC, if the Russians are able to export oil through Vladivostok, it's great for India. Yeah. So we should operationalize the CVMC. Let the Americans complain. How long is India going to keep bowing down to the US and bowing to US diktats? They said stop purchasing Venezuelan oil, we stopped. They said stop purchasing Iranian oil, we stopped. They said stop purchasing Russian oil, we brought down our purchase of Russian oil. How long do you keep dancing to America's tunes? It's not like they are our friends, right? So you need some fortitude to be able to do this. I would say India should operationalize the Chennai Vladivostok Maritime Corridor. Is it operational? I am not sure. Let me see. Is the Chennai Vladivostok Maritime Corridor operational? Yes, it is operational apparently. 24 days, right? Cargo. What about oil? Cargo is fine. Coking coal, oil, liquefied natural gas. So I think that's a great alternative if it is already operational. It's a great alternative to the energy that we have to import through Hormuz. Right now, there's a disaster happening there. So yes, India and Russia, it will be great for India-Russia ties as well. Okay. GGEZS says, if India went capitalist after 1947, when we liberated Bangladesh, could we have installed military bases and written their constitution just like the US does? We could have done that irrespective of whether we went capitalist or communist or whatever after 1947. When we liberated Bangladesh, we could have reabsorbed Bangladesh into India. Why take the trouble of installing military bases and writing a constitution for the nation? Bangladesh is anyway historically Indian territory. And at that time, their population wasn't even radicalized like it is today. There weren't a bunch of blood-sucking zombies, blood-seeking zombies, right? I can imagine the kind of comments I'm going to get from Bangladeshis now. Anyhow, India should have simply reabsorbed Bangladesh into India. I don't understand why Bangladesh was made into a separate sovereign nation. Why? So it had nothing to do whether we were capitalist or communist or socialist or whatever. We could have simply reabsorbed it. Big mistake. Big mistake. Naik says, from the US and China's perspective, does first restrain India completely, then compete with each other is on their cards? If yes, till what extent both can collaborate? It's not like that. See, it's not like first we restrain India, then we compete. It's not like that. They're already competing. They are already major adversaries, the US and China. It's not like they will first cooperate and contain India and then start competing with each other. They are already competing with each other. They're extremely hostile to each other. The CHIPS Act came into force in the 2010s, late 2010s, right? During Biden, whenever it came into came into operation. A CHIPS Act came into operation during Biden's presidency, which is after 2020, but whatever. Trump launched the trade war on China in 2017, 2018, around that time, right? They're already competing. But they agree on one thing, that India must be contained. So on that matter, they will cooperate even while competing on everything else. Okay? They will collaborate only on that limited matter. In everything else, they are adversaries. Okay, Kakashi says 1 out of 2. Disagree. US is not dumb. They know India will not partake in China containment war, game war, like Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Taiwan. Reason US balances India-Pakistan ties is because US benefits from economic cooperation with India and from letting India rise a bit economically to balance China, but not too much. India has economic use, Pakistan has military use. When did I ever say the US is dumb? When did I ever say the US is dumb? The US can use India as a leverage or counterbalance against China, even if India is not willing to play any games vis-a-vis China. Just by engaging with India economically and by having India absorb manufacturing that China used to do, the US could have leveraged India. Now they have decided that India will not be leveraged, India will be contained. India is being contained now. China, it's being contained in different ways. And Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Taiwan, these are American vassals. Japan and South Korea and even Taiwan are under US military occupation. We're not discussing these countries. India is not like those countries. Maybe you're a new viewer, but I have never categorized India with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines. Never ever. India is not like those countries. Okay? The US is not dumb. The US is way more advanced in intelligence and geostrategy compared to India. We are not talking about nursery or junior KG level games here. Now, the reason why the US supports Pakistan is to contain India, is to keep India off balance. That's been their strategy since the 1970s, 1980s, especially from 1980 onwards. But from 2000 and from the mid 2000s onwards, the US decided to leverage India also as a hedge against China. So if India rises with US help, that will be detrimental to China's interests. That was the understanding and the thinking. That's why the Americans did the 1-2-3 deal with India, the nuclear agreement, which was never ever operationalized in any way, but it's still there on paper. Manmohan Singh's time. Right? And in the 2010s, the India-US relationship was better than ever before. And that went on until 2022, when India refused to support the US sanctions against Russia and so on and so forth. So the US is now once again on Pakistan's side. Until then, the US had lost interest in Pakistan between 2012 to 2022. That's when Pakistan and China were iron brothers, right? Now the US is once again fully pro-Pakistan. It was not that much the case between 2022 until 2024. But 22, they did the regime change, ousted Imran Khan, brought in Shahbaz Sharif. And once Trump came to power in 2024, that was it. Right? So the US doesn't balance India-Pakistan ties. The US fully supports Pakistan. Okay? The US sees India as a market. The US still wants to engage with India economically, but their demands are maximalist. We still haven't signed a trade agreement with the US, by the way. We still haven't signed that. Now the tariffs on India are what, 17%? They used to be 50% a few months ago, right? We still haven't signed a trade agreement with them because they are still issuing maximalist demands that India should open up its economy completely to the US with 0% tariffs, including the agricultural sector and other sectors, so that India becomes a massive market for the US for dumping goods and extracting value out of India. That's all they seek from India. They don't want their one of their officials, the deputy secretary of state or whatever. He was in Delhi a couple of months ago. He said explicitly, the US will not repeat the mistakes it made with China by aiding and abetting and midwifing China's rise. The US will not allow India to rise, but we want you as a market. All right, please understand, this is not junior KG level games. This is very okay. Piyush Shukla says, people say Gaddafi was a good ruler for Africa. West killed him. Why the West killed him? Replace dollars with gold or something else. US built on 20 million native people's corpses. Why karma so slow for them? The US is not built on the corpses of 20 million natives. It's built on the corpses of 100 million natives. At least 50 million. Now Gaddafi. People say Gaddafi was a good ruler for Africa. He was not a ruler of Africa. He ruled Libya. Let's find out where Libya is. Where is Libya? He was not a ruler of Africa. Okay, so let's find out. There is this nation called Libya. You see here, in the middle of the screen, that's Libya. Where is it? North Africa. It is west of Egypt and east of Tunisia and Algeria. That is Libya, North Africa. Okay? It is south of the Mediterranean Sea. It's not very far from Italy. If you see the distance between the coast of Italy and the Tripoli, it's less than 500 kilometers. Not far away, relatively speaking. So Muammar Gaddafi was the ruler of Libya. He was a good ruler of Libya. He was accused of all kinds of things like some bombing, some aircraft, and God knows what. But all he wanted was to be left alone to rule his country. He was a dictator. Of course, he was a dictator. So, under his rule, Libya was stable, peaceful, reasonably prosperous. People had jobs. There was complete law and order. There was no crime. There was no slavery. There was no ethnic conflict. Nothing. All he was doing was ruling his country with an iron fist. Did he oppress some people? Well, the West claims he did. Well, is law and order oppression? Is a strict iron-fisted control over law and order, is it oppression? Oh, he's oppressing the poor criminals. Like India oppresses the poor Pakistani terrorists that way. So he was a good ruler for his country. And what he wanted was a pan-African currency that would be backed by gold. But a pan-African currency that is backed by gold would naturally be a natural replacement for the US dollar. That's why he was very bad. And that's why he got killed. Yeah. The US is built on 20 million native people's corpses. Why is karma so slow for them? Look, the US is an empire. Empires typically last 250, 300 years on average. Some last longer, some last less. Karma, well, I don't know how the law of karma works. It's mysterious, so I can't say about that. Abhay Singh says, first time here. Well, Abhay Singh, welcome. Good to have you. Do you think we should have completely abandoned the Indus Water Treaty? What would have been the ramifications of that? We have walked away from the Indus Water Treaty. We have abandoned it. It was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. We should have done that 50 years ago. Why should we be under any obligation to allow Pakistan to make use of 80% of the waters of the rivers that flow through India? Why? We have more people. We have the rivers flowing through India. Why should we not take everything? Especially when Pakistan insists on being an enemy of India and doing terrorism and employing terrorism as a state policy. There's a whole bunch of rivers that flow out of Tibet. Does China enter into any stupid treaties, lopsided treaties with anybody? No, it does not. It's going to dam every river if it wants to. Right? And India is the more powerful nation, and still we gave Pakistan 80% of the waters. It's the most lopsided treaty in history. Even a defeated nation doesn't accept that lopsided treaty as we did. Right? So we have now walked away from this. What we have to do is to construct the infrastructure to completely use the waters of these rivers. Divert the waters into canals that will maybe make Rajasthan green or whatever. Use the water completely. To hell with Pakistan, what their needs are, as long as they insist on remaining a terrorist nation. If they give up terrorism, if they dismantle their nuclear program, then we can think of being friendly with them, right? Until then, the Indus Waters Treaty, and even then, we should not give them 80% of the water. We should give them water as per their requirements, only as a magnanimous gesture. What are the ramifications of India walking away from the Indus Waters Treaty? Nothing whatsoever. Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, James England says the UK has better jets than India. The UK had the Sea Harrier, which was a very good jet. India also used that. What jets does the UK use today? F-16s, Eurofighter Typhoons. What does it use? Let me find out. Oh, sorry, not this. I wonder what fighter jets the UK uses. The UK doesn't even need fighter jets, right? It's a US vassal. The US will take care of it. What fighter jets does the Royal Air Force use? Let's see. Eurofighter Typhoon, of course. Yeah, it has 110 of those. F-35A, okay, it doesn't have any of those, but it'll acquire some by 2030. F-35B, it's got 47. Reconnaissance and all is fine. We're talking about fighter jets. Sparrows, Red Sparrows, all that. Okay, so it's mainly the Eurofighter Typhoon. 110 of those. That's about it. Yeah. It's an okay aircraft. Nothing special about it. It's not a bad aircraft, but it's all right. Not bad. Okay. Rohit says, view on Japan becoming a proactive defense player. Japan is under permanent US military occupation. If it becomes a defense player, it will only be as an auxiliary arm of the US. Apart from that, it's not a proactive nation whatsoever. Everything Japan does is controlled by the US. The US decides what Japan does. Especially, look, internal politics, Japan does whatever is there, whatever it does. But when it comes to economic policy, foreign policy, and military policy, the US decides what Japan does. And is it a major defense exporter? I'm not sure it is. Has it amended its constitution to make self-defense constitutional right? National self-defense a constitutional right? It's not done that. Even now, despite Madame, what's her name? The Japanese Prime Minister, the lady, she has a massive majority, but she has not amended the constitution, right? And so, yeah, I'm not sure how it's a proactive defense player. It has a self-defense force, which is the armed forces, but they are under US control. Rohit has become a new member. Thank you so much, Rohit, and welcome to the channel's membership. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Here to Win W says, is it possible to scientifically engineer a heat wave and air pollution in India? Foreigners in X are calling out Indian heat wave is Bill Gates' work. Well, I don't know about heat waves. It is certainly possible to modify weather. These weather modification programs are very secretive. Okay? But it is very possible, very much possible to modify weather. Weather modification programs have been used by the US as military tools as far back as the Vietnam War, 1960s and 1970s. And whatever advancements they have made in weather modification technology, they have kept those under wraps, which is why you will not see any scientific literature that details how this is done. Such publications are not allowed. That's why a lot of people call this conspiracy theories. These are not conspiracy theories. it is certainly possible to scientifically engineer weather modifications. For example, Iran. Once again, let me show you. Where is this? Look at what's happening in Iran. The Iranian president, Mr. Ahmadinejad, a long time ago said that the Americans had stolen Iran's rainfall. Look here. The Iranians have destroyed most of the American military infrastructure in the Gulf region now, right? So what's happened? After Iran destroyed dozens of US and Israeli radars in the region, it's raining and pouring in Iran. It hasn't rained this much in decades. The climate war against Iran, as warned by former Iranian President Ahmadinejad, turned out to be true. And this lady, whoever she is saying, I'm sick of people dismissing this as a conspiracy theory. Literally every conspiracy, from sexual blackmail at the highest authorities to wars of expansion in oil to elite pedophile gangs and cannibalism, turned out to be true. But there are still fools who think suggesting the US was actively manipulating weather in the region is lunacy, even though the US has weaponized weather modification since the Vietnam War. See Operation Popeye. So if you can modify the weather to make it such that it doesn't rain in a certain part of the world, or rainfall is very scarce, then that naturally creates heat wave conditions, right? So it is possible to engineer an artificial drought, which will then cause heat waves. And heat waves, when you have a heat wave and you have a drought, you have soil erosion that can cause pollution, right? So you can engineer all these things. Now, I don't know about whether it's Bill Gates' work or somebody else's work. I don't know about that, but it is possible to engineer these things. Ashay Samant says, a lot of the diaspora now faces racism and violence in countries like the US and UK. Any advice for Indians abroad? My advice for Indians abroad is, if you are living abroad, first of all, follow the local rules, regulations, laws. Don't break the law. Secondly, don't be combative, aggressive. Don't get drunk in public. Don't do any of those stupid things. Yeah? Apart from that, be aware that there is more racism and violence towards you now. Be aware of that. Be cognizant of this fact. And keep your eyes open whenever you travel, whenever you're in public. Keep your eyes open. And learn self-defense. And know the law. Know the local laws. What legal recourse you have if something happens. Learn all of that. Be very familiar with the local laws. And know how to contact the authorities if or when required. So these are basic precautions. That's all I can advise. Take all the basic precautions. Don't be complacent. Don't take things for granted. Be aware of the situation and act accordingly. Right? All the best to everyone abroad. Rajat says, why still 95% we are importing? Still no VLSI done? I don't know. I think the government has to answer this question. VLSI is very large scale integration. We're talking about semiconductors here, right? So we are now producing our own chips. They may not be the most advanced chips, but we are producing chips. Let's find out what advances we have made in semiconductor manufacturing. We have a national semiconductor program, right? What is the status of India's national semiconductor program? Let's see. So, anchored by 76,000 crore semiconductor mission, has shifted from policy to active execution as of early 2026. The program has approved more than 10 major projects, including fabs and assembly units, with whatever lakh crore in investment. So what is being manufactured? So it's still in the infancy. It has moved from policy to active execution. And the manufacturing is now just beginning. So maybe we'll have to wait like a few years more for us to become like 50% independent. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 years more. It's something that takes time. Manufacturing is not like software. Software you can write overnight, or you can write in a week's time, a new software product. Manufacturing is physical manufacturing. That takes time. So we're going to have to be patient. The government is doing a good job. The government has recognized that semiconductor manufacturing is very important, and it's investing so much money into this. So it will take time, But in 5, 7 years, 10 years maximum, we should be reasonably independent in manufacturing chips and all that. Yeah. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, our friend James asks why India rejected industrialization to look at China now and what a fool's errand. See, India did not reject industrialization. It was the Nehru regime and subsequent regimes that rejected industrialization. Mr. Gandhi wanted India to be a khadi economy. He wanted Indians to live in huts, and each hut should have that spinning wheel, and each Indian will spin yarn and sell just enough in one day to eat 3 meals a day or maybe 2 meals a day. That's what Mr. Gandhi wanted. Now, Mr. Nehru wanted a centrally planned economy, and that's what he executed. That's what he implemented. And that gave us the Nehruvian rate of growth, 2%, 3% GDP growth per year. And India rejected industrialization. India embraced socialism with Nehruvian characteristics. So it was Mr. Nehru, the great, magnificent Mr. Nehru, and subsequent regimes that rule India that are responsible for this. Indians, they did not reject industrialization. It's the people who the British placed in power who rejected industrialization. And you are right, China has gone far ahead of India. Even China began industrializing in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 80s, but it became visible in the 90s. And they've done a great job. One has to commend what they've achieved. And India is still not embracing thorough reforms, still now, even now. We still have too much red tape. We still have too many rules, laws, regulations. We still have too much allegedly corruption and so on. Rajat says, Sudan's Darfur genocide, who has done it? External forces. Yeah. See, right now the situation in Sudan is that you have the rapid support forces and you have the other faction, and they're fighting each other. And one faction is supported by this group of external actors. The other faction is supported by that group of external actors. It is alleged that both the US and Russia are allegedly involved on different sides. Allegedly, some Gulf nations are allegedly involved on various sides. Maybe the Saudi Arabia versus UAE rivalry is being played out over here, and so on. So it's external forces who are responsible for a disaster that's been unfolding in Africa, in Sudan, over a period of multiple decades. And in one of the previous live streams, I had given a detailed history of how this has happened. I don't remember which live stream it was, but you know what? I'll look it up and maybe I'll post it as a comment under this live stream. Yeah. Atul Prasad says, have you looked into Savitri Devi, the mystic from Europe? Controversial in the West, but provides an alternate view to the post-World War II liberal world order. I don't know who this Savitri Devi is. Let me see. Savitri Devi, mystic. Who is this person? Who was this person? This lady is no longer alive. Savitri Devi Mukherjee was a French-born Greek Nazi activist. What the hell? Maximiani Portas was a Greek-French author and spy who developed a unique form of esoteric Nazism, synthesizing Aryanism, deep ecology, and Hinduism. She famously viewed Adolf Hitler as an avatar of Vishnu, intended to end the Kali Yuga and return the world to a golden age. She was born in 1905. Oh yeah, this lady, I recognize the face. Okay. She was born in 1905. She was an outspoken animal rights activist and vegetarian who preferred animals to humans. She married a Bengali Brahmin person to facilitate her stay in India, where she became involved in Hindu nationalist politics. She is a key figure in neo-Nazism, promoting a blend of occultism and racial ideology, often referred to as esoteric Hitlerism. She believed in a cyclical view of history, arguing that human beings are divided into distinct races. She argued that Hitler was a divine figure whose mission was to fight for the superior race. She authored numerous books, including The Lightning and the Sun, 1958, which explores her idea that Hitler as a divine superhuman figure. Her ideas, often considered extreme, have seen a resurgence within two of the modern 11 alt-right and 4 white supremacist circles. Note BBC News and Facebook under whatever, space of user, Facebook user, whatever. Her life and work and so on and so forth. Savitri Devi, the mythical fascist. Yes, I remember her face at least. Hitler's priestess, the Hindu Aryan myth, and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't really looked into her history and whatever her views were. Once I saw her face, I recognized it from memory. I've seen her face, but I haven't really bothered to study her life and work and her views and so on. Interesting. Must be an interesting story. Okay. Rohit says, being a civilized state, is it good for modern geopolitics? Of course. Of course. See, you have to understand that you can be civilized and yet hard-nosed in geopolitics. Being civilized doesn't mean that you should abandon your interests. You can be civilized. You can refuse to do certain things. You can refuse to nuke nations, for example. But you will have to look out for your interests. After all, it is Indian civilization that gave rise to Vishnugupta Chanakya, who authored the Arthashastra. And a lot of people say the Arthashastra makes the Machiavelli look like a schoolboy, right? So it's perfectly fine. Rohan Bidi says, universe has a sound horizon imprinted in galaxy distribution. Pressure waves in the early universe left a preferred separation scale between galaxies. I have no idea what this is. Okay, this must be some new news report or something. The universe has a sound horizon imprinted in galaxy distribution. Okay, listen, I am not going to look this up online, what this news or whatever it is about, but let me explain what the galaxy distribution is like. We have a certain kind of distribution of galaxies. See, if we look at the universe from the largest scales, the universe is isotropic and homogeneous, which means everywhere you look, you have a very similar distribution of and concentration of galaxies and dark matter and whatever else, right? It's mostly galaxies and dark matter. That's what you have. So if you look at the universe at small scales, like if you look at the solar system from a human's eye, well, the universe doesn't seem to have uniform distribution. Most of it is empty space. Then you have planets like Earth, Mars, Venus, etc., Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, near the sun. It's clearly not a homogeneous distribution from the way we see it. But if we zoom out, then you will see that we have a galaxy. And the distribution of stars within the galaxy seems to be reasonably homogeneous. But if you zoom out, then you will see that the Milky Way has a partner or neighbor galaxy, Andromeda, but then there's a big gap between us and other galaxies. You zoom out further, you will see galaxy clusters. You zoom out further and further and further, you will see that there is homogeneity and isotropy, which means everything in all directions is mostly the same. So that's what you have. That's what the universe is structured like at the largest scales. Pressure waves in the early universe left a preferred separation scale between galaxies. Yeah, that's some new research that seems to have come out, some new study. I'll have to see it. Okay, let's see. Universe sound horizon imprinted in galaxy distribution. What is that? The sound horizon is a characteristic scale, approximately 150 megaparsecs or 4 to 490 million light years in today's universe. Okay, baryon acoustic oscillations. Okay, propagated in the early plasma and frozen recombination. Okay. Okay. So you have baryon acoustic oscillations that propagated in the early plasma. The plasma is the little, the contents of the vacuum, which is not entirely a pure vacuum. A subtle excess clustering of galaxies at this specific distance used as a standard ruler to measure cosmic expansion. Okay. So what are baryon acoustic oscillations? Regular periodic fluctuations in the density of visible baryonic matter caused by sound waves traveling through primordial plasma. And it froze obviously at recombination. Yeah, so the concept is that the very early universe, before inflation, was extremely tiny. Then you had inflation, which was superluminal expansion, and after that the universe has been expanding. and the expansion is accelerating. For the longest time, for the first 400,000 years of the universe's expansion, the universe was essentially, what was it, 400,000 years, whatever it was opaque. It was very dense, very dense. So you had sound waves propagating through the universe, and eventually the universe uh, expanded beyond a certain stage, and then the sound waves froze. And the freezing of the sound waves left behind patterns in the universe, which are still visible today, right? And so at certain distances, you have certain kinds of clustering of galaxies, and that is used to measure the expansion of the universe and so on. So yeah, that's the deal. That comes under cosmology, which is a certain discipline of physics. It doesn't come under astrophysics or other disciplines. Yeah, so it's pressure waves or sound waves in the early universe which caused this, and eventually the universe expanded beyond a certain range, a certain scale, and then all that the sound stopped because the universe became too thin for sound to propagate. So that's why those patterns got imprinted essentially forever in the universe, and that's why we have, this periodic distribution of galaxies. Pradeep Kumar Roy says all the flat apartment complexes at my place are all concrete slums. No forest or green area nearby. No greenery, no planning inside. India is doomed. It's because of India's administrators. Because of India's politicians. There's no concept of town planning. There's no concept of beautification. There's no concept of livable spaces. Just cram as much development as possible into as small an area as possible so that the builders can make money and the politicians can extract money out of builders. And everybody, the whole ecosystem benefits from it. Terrible, right? Terrible, absolutely terrible. Vijay Vicky says, what do you think of Trump assassination attack? Was that a false flag? What do you think? So what happened yesterday, I have not seen, so I don't know. But the assassination attempt, the one that grazed his ear, I'm pretty sure that was a staged thing. I'm pretty sure it was staged. The Eternal Witness has gifted one membership of the channel to one lucky person. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you on behalf of the person who received it. It's very kind of you and very, very nice of you. Thank you so much, the Eternal Witness. Godliness says fake paneer, fake milk, and so much more. From food to education to health, everything has turned into an extortion racket. On top, we have reservation and freebies. Sadly, things don't look promising. We have laws in India. But are the laws enforced? Are they implemented? Not really. Enforcement is what makes laws real, right? You put laws on paper but don't enforce them. On paper, corruption is illegal, but in the real world, nothing is done. Then what happens? Then you have these situations, right? Healthcare and education are extortion rackets. You are made to spend years chasing a piece of paper and you have to pay out of your nose. You have to pay through your nose for that. And that piece of paper doesn't give you anything. You don't really acquire any skills in the education system. It actually dumbs you down. And they say it's a great education system. Now we have a new education policy, which is going to make it even better. What nonsense. It's a joke. And then you say, you have reservations. You have freebies given to various sections of society. Terrible. One had hoped that in the past 12 years something would change. Terrible. Godliness says, explain the main pillars of any foreign policy and give example of how internal political situation of any sovereign nation reflects on the external affairs. Main pillars of foreign policy. Well, there's economic policy, there's military policy, there's diplomacy. But the main pillar of foreign policy is your national interest, your self-interest. Every nation has its own version of a national interest. So based on what your national interest is, you're going to have core interests or critical interests. You're going to have important interests. You're going to have peripheral interests. And that is going to determine how you interact with the other nations. So wherever you have nations that have similar interests, they're going to work together and so on and so forth. So that's how foreign policy is determined. Now, internal political situation of any nation, external affairs. Examples. I'll give you how it works. Examples, you can look for them yourself, but I'll tell you how it works. Let's say you are Donald Trump. Okay? Or let's say you are any American president. And the US is the most powerful nation in the world. And the people of the US expect that the US wins in everything. And then let's say you have a new nation, you have a nation that that is showing signs of being more sovereign than usual, or it's showing signs of what you would call anti-American policies by being a communist nation, for example, or maybe by trading with China or Russia. Then what do? The people will say, look, this is bad. So you have to show that, the US is still number one. So you go and invade the nation. Right? So that's internal politics affecting external affairs. So there are many such ways in which this manifests itself. Let's say in Nigeria, there is Boko Haram, which is killing Christians. And your political constituency in the US is all Christians. So to appease your constituency, you go and take action against Boko Haram. So then your constituency is appeased and they're pleased. And then you get more votes in the next election. So that's how it works. See? Okay, Sunil Naik says, given exodus of elites to other nations and damages done to our unethical, corrupt leadership, when can we expect our fate of either Africa? Given exodus of elites to other nations, from where? From India. And damages done to our unethical, corrupt leadership, when can we expect our fate of either Africa or Soviet Union? When can we expect our fate of either Africa or Soviet Union? So you were saying, when will India either become Africa or Soviet Union? I hope never. Exodus of elites. No, it's not exodus of elites. It's a brain drain. Exodus of the brightest Indians, young Indians, out of India. Still continues. See, what is the truth in India? What do all parents want? All parents want their children to get a good degree and get the hell out of India. Everybody wants that. Everyone wants their child to settle in the US or in the West or something. That's the ideal situation for every parent. Why is it like this? Because India is a rotten country. It's got a rotten system. Why does every parent dream that the child will settle abroad? India is Nigeria with nukes. Right? But I am hoping India doesn't become like Africa or the Soviet Union. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that there'll be some leader in India who has the fortitude, let's say, of unleashing revolutionary reforms in India. It's not happening right now, obviously. Yeah. Messy Alien says, if aliens were here, we would never know, as they'd be so advanced than us. People are so stupid to believe in this fake UFO sightings. Turn 618 versus Ant. Now, what is Turn 618? Turn 618 is a black hole. Okay, now the question. If aliens were here, we would never know. And people are stupid to believe in this fake UFO sightings. UFO sightings, some of them may be true, may be real. But I don't think these are aliens that are here. I think it is secret military technology that is being tested by certain nations. Maybe it's Lockheed Martin technology. Maybe it's Boeing technology. Maybe it's NASA technology. I think it is advanced technology. I don't think it's UFOs. I don't think it's aliens. Now, if aliens were here, we would never know about it. Is that true? Think about it like this. Let's say I am a biology researcher. I am studying bacteria. How do I study them? I put bacteria in a petri dish. I put them under a microscope, shine the light, and then I choose the appropriate lens and look at them, at the bacteria. Those bacteria have no idea somebody is looking at them through a microscope. They have no idea whatsoever. Maybe there are some beings who are so advanced, so much more advanced than us, that we are like bacteria to them. And maybe they are looking at us now and we have no idea. Of course, it's possible. Turn 618 versus Ant. I don't know what Ant is. Turn 618 is one of the largest black holes ever discovered, larger than our solar system. Mind-bogglingly gigantic. Yeah, that's a massive, massive black hole. And is it a new black hole or something that's been discovered? I don't know. But TON 618 is one of the incredibly massive black holes. What's the size? More than 1 billion solar masses, I think. Let's find out. What is the size of the TON 618 black hole in terms of solar masses? Okay, 66 billion solar masses. Massive, massive, ultra massive black hole. And it's a hyperluminous quasar as well. Okay. Vijay says Iranian MP has spoken against Pakistan as mediators as they are not an impartial party. Unfortunate for Pakistan's newfound fame. See, Pakistan, whatever newfound fame it has, it is only engineered by the United States. Okay? It's engineered by the US artificially. And Pakistan's mediation is not really mediation. Pakistan is acting on behalf of the US. Pakistan is not a mediator is supposed to be a neutral party. Pakistan is the US vassal. It's not neutral. It's not a mediator. It is simply a convenient location and a convenient puppet to have, because the Iranians refuse to speak to the US directly, so the Americans are using Pakistan for the purpose. That's all. And the Iranians know very well the Pakistanis are not to be trusted. Kaiser Shuze says, is Israel, which itself runs the Illuminati behind the death of Michael Jackson? MJ is Michael Jackson? I don't know. How will I know about this? Do you people imagine I know everything in the world? I can only see what you guys can see. I don't have access to any secret information, secret sources. I don't know. How will I know if Israel is behind Michael Jackson's death? I don't know. I'm very sorry. I don't know. Rajat says the story of Titu Singh, who recognized his own murderers in Agra court, is stunning. I do not find any flaws in the story. Is it proving reincarnation? I don't know. See, I don't know the story of Titu Singh. I don't know who Titu Singh is. But there are many stories like this. This is actually kind of interesting. I have read some of this like 20, 30 years ago. Some of these things. Some of the stories about reincarnation. I don't know if it proves anything. But how, for example, there are stories of children who remember somehow who they were in a previous life. They know how they died. And they know details about their previous life which are impossible to manufacture or fake. Now, were these kids all coached to create a hoax? I don't know. Can't be always that case, right? So it's fascinating. I don't know. It also appears that, people who have birthmarks or whatever, these are wounds from previous lifetimes or whatever. That's also a theory, perhaps. I don't know. So I don't know how true or whatever it is. I don't know if it proves reincarnation, but it's pretty intriguing for sure. Sunil Naik says, given the okay, we took this question, right? We took this question already. I don't know why it's come again. Rajat says, can the sun be used as a telescope from behind? There is no behind of the sun. The sun is a sphere. What's behind a sphere? I don't know how we can use the sun as a telescope from behind. You can use it. Well, the sun can do gravitational lensing. It can bend starlight, but only you can measure that only when there's a complete solar eclipse. So I don't know how the sun can be used as a telescope. I'm not sure how it could work. Saurabh Mahajan says, how is Earth's sidereal rotation important in astronomy? See, I'll tell you what. We have something called the precession of the equinoxes. Right? So what happens is that, let's say, okay, I don't have my tennis ball here. Do I have something else? I don't. Let's say, see, the Earth, it spins. Cricket, right? Leg spin, off spin, all that stuff. The Earth spins around its own axis. So we have the plane of the solar system. Okay, it's like a flat disk. Why is it a flat disk? Because the solar system evolved out of a big gas cloud, which became a protostellar disk, and then fusion ignited in the center, which became the sun, and then everything else coalesced around that. So we have the plane of the solar system, which is like a flat disk. And the Earth, it rotates around the sun, revolves around the sun in the plane of the solar system. But Earth also rotates around its own axis, and the axis of rotation is not completely perpendicular to the plane of the solar system. It's slightly tilted, maybe because of an ancient impact or whatever. And so this axis, it also spins around like that once in every 23,000 or so years. And that's why we don't always have the same pole star. The pole star changes every few thousand years. And what's interesting is that our ancestors recorded other pole stars, which tells you how ancient our history is. And that's also important in astronomy, because because of that, the constellations, they change their locations and so on. So yeah. Kakashi says, before Iran war, CIA, Mossad, MI6 tried to force color revolution in Iran by artificially shorting the currency and striking Iran economy to fuel hardship and protests. Correct. They also engineered riots in Iran. You had all these protests and riots happening, and you saw that there were people wearing civilian clothing who were shooting like professionals at the crowds. So there's two possibilities. Either these are Iranian secret agents or foreign secret agents. I don't know which is which. But it's well known that color revolutions are instigated by creating artificial protests and riots, by paying people to do that. Right? So yes, they have tried to do this with Iran. They tried to force the color revolution in Iran. They had protests break out in various cities. They artificially manipulated the currency and what its purchasing power, etc., is. Right? Yes. And see, when you create an artificial hardship in a country by sanctioning the hell out of the country and so on, then the people, obviously, they don't understand how multidimensional geopolitics works. They will simply blame their government. Right? So that's how you make a government unpopular. So yeah, that's how the game is played. It's terrible. Rajat says, is many worlds theory of quantum mechanics really accepted? The many worlds theory, it's not a theory. It's an interpretation of quantum mechanics. See, there are multiple interpretations of quantum mechanics. There's the Copenhagen interpretation. There's the many worlds interpretation. There are other interpretations. Also, the most commonly, widely accepted interpretation is the Copenhagen interpretation, which says, shut up and calculate. Don't ask questions about what we don't understand. Quantum mechanics, it allows you to understand the world really well, and to, you can use it to develop technology. All the technology we have today, much of it is based in quantum mechanics. For example, your laptop, your phone, your microprocessors, your microchips, this is all quantum technology. You would not have this live stream happening if we had not mastered quantum mechanics and used it successfully in engineering. So we know what quantum mechanics is. We know the equations, we know the laws, we know everything. We don't know what they're telling us. Okay? We don't know what it means. What does it mean? What does superposition mean? What does quantum entanglement mean? What is it telling us? Right? What is the double slit experiment actually telling us? How can a particle be a wave and a particle at the same time? How can an electron pass through two slits at the same time? We don't understand so many of these things. And that's why we have multiple interpretations of quantum mechanics. One is the Copenhagen interpretation. One is the many worlds interpretation, which is really interesting, which is actually quite frightening. Actually, it's quite frightening if you go deeper into it. It's very frightening about what is your ultimate fate. It means you will never die. One of the implications of the many worlds theory is that you never die. You remain in some form or the other. At least your consciousness remains in some form or the other. If you think about the implications, it's frightening. And the many worlds interpretation is, there are many physicists who consider that to be the dominant interpretation. And these are not crackpots, okay? These are actual physicists. Yeah. Rajat says, can we know what happened before 10 raised to minus 32 seconds? Almost impossible to know. So what happened in 10 raised to minus 32 seconds? You're talking about the history of the universe. So it's around 10 raised to minus 32 seconds after the Big Bang that inflation happened, which is this superluminal expansion of space-time. What happened before that? It's almost impossible for us to know. The entire universe was seriously compressed, like unimaginably dense and hot at the time. And what were the conditions like? What were the laws of physics like at the time? It's very hard to reconstruct that. So maybe in the future we'll make some progress, but right now, based on the observational evidence and all, it's pretty hard to reconstruct what happened before that time. That Guntur guy is a new member. Thank you so much, Guntur guy, and welcome to the channel's membership. I really appreciate it. Godliness says, if foreign policy is ideology based like Iran, do they suffer from self-personification? Ideology can sometimes blind you from the reality on the ground. I don't know what self-personification is. What is self-personification? Let me ask Google, because I am not aware of what this means. Self-personification. What does it mean? The psychological or creative process of attributing human qualities, emotions, or intentionality to oneself, to one's body parts. No, that's not what you're asking here. I don't know what self-personification, I don't know what you mean by that. Foreign policy, foreign policy, is it ideology based in Iran? No, foreign policy is based on national interests, even for Iran. Their governance is ideology based. The way they run their country is based on Shia Islamic ideology. Sure. Their foreign policy is not based on ideology. Their foreign policy is based on national interest. And their national interest to some small extent is based on ideology. That, you know what, we won't allow any other form of government in Iran. We will only have Sharia law and that sort of thing. Right? Can ideology blind you from the reality on the ground? It depends on the ideology. Depends. Okay? Not all ideologies will blind you. Some will. It depends. Okay. Rarun Rajar says, what do you think of Indians becoming the face of many corporations? I believe Indian leaders are micromanagers. Yes, they are. They're harsh on people working under them and please the ones who are above them. There is nothing to be proud of. See, whether Indians managers are micromanagers or macro managers doesn't matter. But Indians becoming CEOs of various corporations is nothing for India to be proud of. These Indians who are CEOs of American corporations, they are American citizens. They aren't Indian citizens. Just because they came from India doesn't mean a thing. It actually is something to be deeply upset about and ashamed of. That we drove these talented people away from India. That they are now foreign citizens and working for a foreign nation and serving that nation's interests. What is there to be proud of? And they are not the owners or founders of companies. They are simply employees. The CEO is the topmost employee of a company, right? And when it comes to Indian managers, they are typically micromanagers and really pain in the neck. Yes, many of them, not all, many of them. Piyush Sinha says, Japan has removed the ban on the sale of lethal weapons to other countries. Really? Okay, India has welcomed that. Should India do long-term defense deals with Japan? Because after all, Japan is a US vassal and can overturn those deals. As long as Japan is a non-sovereign nation under US occupation, it doesn't make sense for India to do defense deals with Japan, because Japan is completely controlled by the US. I'm a huge fan of Japan, Japan's culture, Japan's history, Japan's people. Okay? I hope that someday soon Japan will be once again a completely sovereign nation and civilization. But right now it is under US military occupation and complete US control. At this time, I don't think it makes sense for India to do any defense deals with Japan. Rajat says DJT, Donald J. Trump wanted White House underground structure and this happens strange. I don't know. Underground structure. I'm not aware of that. Sorry. This happens. You mean the thing that happened yesterday? I don't know. Z ha 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 says, has physics stalled on quantum gravity because it lacks a trimurti? Creation, preservation, destruction, mirroring quantum field theories, operator structure. I don't know. But look, I don't mix religion and spirituality with physics ever. I never, ever, ever, ever do that. The two things don't mix from my perspective. Okay. I never mix religion with physics. I never mix spirituality or anything else with science. Never do that. Why has physics stalled? It's because string theory took over everything. All the funding goes towards string theory. If you're not a string theorist, you don't get published no matter what you try to publish, no matter how good your research is. Right? The string theory mafia has taken over academia in the West. That's why all other approaches have been marginalized. Nothing is published. And then you have the publishing mafia, the peer review mafia. They've turned the whole physics academic structure has been turned into a mindless paper producing, paper churning factory, which does. And if you look at the papers that are published every day on the physics archive, what new progress are they making for physics? Nothing. So the problem, physics has hit a brick wall since 1980 or so. Yeah, the last major theoretical advance was cosmological inflation that was proposed by Alan Guth around 1980, 79, 80, 81, thereabouts. After that, nothing new has come out. Yeah, we discovered the Higgs boson. That was an experimental validation of a 1950s theory. But no new theory has been proposed that has been experimentally validated since 1980, around 1980. That's because the string theory mafia has taken over physics. And other approaches are being marginalized. That's the reason. That's the reason why. Kakashi says, Indian sepoys suit the Western created hierarchical corporate toxic structure, obedience to the white owners and masters, and passive like our CEOs in the West. Indian sepoys suit the Western created hierarchical corporate toxic structure, obedience to the white owners. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So there are Indians also who have leadership qualities. But if you have leadership qualities, you are not a good CEO. See, in the corporate world, they lecture you about leadership qualities and so on. But that's not real leadership. That's simply management. You may be great at managing humans and you term that as leadership. You pretend that is being a leader. That's not being a leader. That's being a manager. A leader doesn't serve somebody up there, somebody above them. A leader serves those who are under them. Those who they represent or those who they actually lead. They don't lead, they serve. Leadership is service. In corporate leadership, it's actually exploitation for obviously money, right? That sort of thing. So typically Indian, whoever becomes a CEO is not really a leader. And a lot of Indians, they make good CEOs and good managers. A lot of Indians have the leadership qualities that you need in founders, but they don't have the capital. So yeah, so these Indians who rise to the positions of CEOs and all, I'm sure they're nice people and all, but they aren't really leaders. They are great employees and great managers. Mary Kane, good to see you, ma'am. Good to see you. Good morning. Good day. Could India's near constant diverse celebrations be an ancient method of harmonizing with quantum fields and promoting positive energy? I don't know, but look, quantum mechanics was discovered in the early 20th century. 1900 is when Max Planck discovered that the ultra microscopic world is quantum in nature. Well, he fitted a curve. He found a formula that fit a curve, but that's how it all started. I'm not sure if ancient Indians knew about quantum mechanics. We knew about the atomic theory. The atomic theory came from India. It was Maharishi Kanad who first proposed this model of the universe, that there is something called the anu, the atom, beyond which the universe is indivisible, that sort of thing. So that was the first atomic model, not quite the first quantum model. But we in India, different parts of India, we have celebrations happening all the time. There's always, every month there's some festival or the other, and festivals and celebrations often incorporate the natural world within. And India's celebrations are pretty, there's no, well, most of the time, there's no animal sacrifice or whatever. Some celebrations do involve that, of course, Kali Puja, etc. But overall, it's pretty harmonious with nature. So India's society was not a capitalist society. India's society was something totally different. India did urbanize and industrialize, but not at the expense of nature. India's civilization evolved over multiple millennia, and the wealth was built up over multiple millennia. So the development, etc., that happened was not done at the expense of destroying nature. So overall, India's culture, traditions, celebrations, festivals have all promoted harmony with nature. And when you are harmoniously involved and entangled with nature, it's overall all about positive energy, right? So that's what India's history and culture and civilization has been about historically. Now, maybe not so much, because we in India are becoming increasingly deracinated, but historically it was that way. Kakashi says freebie and welfare are different. Welfare is good for economy. Freebies and welfare are different. Welfare is good for economy. That's semantics. Right. You can call freebies also as welfare. You can just put a tag of welfare on it, right? That is just semantics. It's just wordplay. The problem is, what is good for the economy, what's bad for the economy? Taking taxpayer money and giving it for free to people is bad for the economy. It's bad for the morale of the country. It's bad for everything. So you can call that freebies, but some politicians may even call that welfare, right? Please understand, it's just wordplay. So giving free stuff to people who haven't earned that's bad for the economy, that's bad for society, that's bad for the nation's morale, it's bad for everything. Welfare, what is welfare? I'm not sure what your definition of welfare is, but everything that is not free, whatever, giving free stuff to people who don't deserve it is terrible for an economy. If you could define what you mean by welfare, I could perhaps give you my opinion about that. Akshay says, how can Trump assassination be staged? I don't know. I'm not a professional in staging assassinations. I would not know. But there are professionals who do all kind of stuff. Piyush Tina says, did USA Israel make a big mistake by eliminating the entire top leadership, because now they are nervous that the negotiations which they are doing with the political leadership, will the IRGC respect it? Look, historically, you don't do such things. You may be two countries at war, but you don't assassinate leaders. That goes against international law. It goes against common sense. If you kill the leaders, who will you negotiate it with? Who will you negotiate with? If you kill the leaders of a country, the country will put up new leaders, and those leaders are not going to be disposed towards negotiating with you. They're not going to trust you. It was incredibly wrong, first of all, legally and morally, to assassinate a world leader, the leader of a country. And secondly, it was incredibly stupid to do that. Because Mr. Khamenei, Ali Khamenei, and the other leaders who were assassinated, they were moderates. You kill the moderates, you're going to have hardliners coming up. So this was a really stupid thing by the Americans and the Israelis to do. This action was born out of arrogance and hubris, and it's not going to serve them well. Sunil Naik says, is it too impractical to dig a tunnel road from underneath Siachen to Wakhan corridor for our connectivity to Central Asia? It's incredibly impractical. Yeah, digging tunnels takes a lot of time, lot of effort, costs a tremendous amount of money. And digging a tunnel that's, well, how far is that? Let's find out, shall we? Let's find out. So you have to bring in huge digging equipment all the way into the Himalayas, first of all. Let's see where is, see, Wakhan corridor is here, right? This is the Wakhan corridor, the Wakhan National Park, and so on. This is the Wakhan corridor. Where is Siachen? Okay, this is Siachen, the Siachen Glacier. So from here to the Wakhan corridor, how far is it? It's about 280 kilometers. But listen, if you want to dig a tunnel, you will not dig from Siachen, right? You will dig it from Leh or Kargil or something. Why from Siachen, which is so high? First of all, it has to be practical. It has to be something you can use practically. If you build a tunnel from Siachen to Wakhan, you will have to first go to Siachen to enter the tunnel. Who can go to Siachen? Only the most well-trained people. It's very practical. Maybe from Srinagar to Wakhan, maybe from Leh to Wakhan, not from Siachen. And secondly, a tunnel that is 300 plus kilometers long potentially, it'll take you maybe decades to build it. So it's not practical overall. It's not practical, right? For example, let's do a quick comparison, a reasonably good comparison. How long is the Channel Tunnel, and how long did it take to build it? So the Channel Tunnel is about 50 kilometers long, and it took just under 6 years to complete. Okay, the channel. Okay, so that did not take so long. 6 years for 50 kilometers. So 36 years for 300 kilometers. But the Channel Tunnel was constructed between England and France by two nations who wanted it, and under good conditions, not like in the Himalayas. So it may take 50 years to build a tunnel from wherever to Wakhan. So it's not practical. Prateek Kumar Roy says, can you explain quantization and wave particle duality in quantum physics? Quantization, wave particle duality. Let's see, these are very big topics in their own right. Let me take one, for example, quantization. What is quantization? So we know there are atoms. What's an atom? An atom has a nucleus, which is the central positively charged component, and it has electrons that spin around the nucleus. Okay, so the simplest atom is a hydrogen atom. It's got one proton in the nucleus, and it's got one electron that orbits the nucleus. Then you have other atoms with more nucleons, that is neutrons and protons, and more electrons. Typically, the number of protons and number of electrons is the same. So for carbon, it's 12 protons and 12 electrons, and a certain number of neutrons, and so on, right? So the question is, we know the nucleus is at the center. Most of the atom is empty space, but where do the electrons spin around? Do they just spin around in any way they want? Any configuration they want? No. The electrons, it turns out, they exist in shells, in specific orbits. These orbits are called K, L, M, N, O, P, etc. And each of these orbits has something called a quantum number, small n. The K orbit or K shell has quantum number n equal to 1. The L shell has n equal to 2. M has n equal to 3, and so on. So this n equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. is the principal quantum number. Okay? And it turns out electrons can only occupy, and each shell or orbit corresponds to a certain energy level, a certain amount of energy that the electron has. And electrons can only occupy, it turns out, we discovered that electrons can only occupy specific orbits, the K, L, M, N orbits, not something between the K and L orbits, or K, yeah. And so the energy of an electron can only be a multiple of n. n equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. It can't be 0.5 n. It can't be 0.3725 n. Nope. Only n equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. So that is quantization. The energies are quantized. The electron orbits are quantized. Okay? That's something that made no sense. I mean, nature is supposed to be continuous, not discrete. So that's quantization. That's how the universe operates at the smallest scales. Why? We don't know why. We just know it is like that. Yeah, that's quantization. So and that gives rise to the phenomena we see right now. Why do we have this orange light behind me? It operates at a certain wavelength that comes out of the excitations of the energy levels of atoms. Okay, and so on. So that's quantization. Wave particle duality. Wave particle duality is a ridiculously mind-bogglingly strange phenomenon that a particle is not necessarily a particle. It can be a wave, but also a particle at the same time. So an electron is a wave, but it's also a particle. And because it's a particle, it can interfere with the other particles. Like it can, because it's a wave, it can show interference patterns. It can interfere with itself. It can be in two positions at the same time. Yeah, and so on. Quantum mechanics, very, 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 very mind-bogglingly strange. Takes a lot of time to get used to it. So that's wave particle duality. An electron is a particle and a wave at the same time. A proton is a particle and a wave at the same time, and so on. Piyush Sinha says, I don't know. I know you don't comment about internal politics, but still, if BJP wins Bengal, could it allow more movement of troops in Bengal around the Bangladesh border? Because all the surrounding states are BJP ruled. Just my thought. I don't know what is the situation in Bengal. Do we not have troops in Bengal? Is troop movement not allowed in Bengal? I have no idea whatsoever. I don't know. I have no idea. So that is a question that I don't have the answer to. I mean, ideally, in every Indian state, movement of troops is a central matter. No state government can come in the way. So if we need troops there, we should have troops there. Ideally, that's how it should work. I don't know what the actual situation is. If it is not that way, I would be very, very concerned. But I don't know. Atul Prasad says, does solipsism solve the observable problem in quantum mechanics? That is, treat yourself as the only thing that can collapse a wave function, and others' observations of Schrodinger's cat are just entangling them with the quantum state. No, I'll tell you what. Observation. You're referring to the collapse of a wave function, right? What do we mean by the collapse of a wave function? Let's say you have an electron somewhere. The electron is represented by a wave function. That's how you describe an electron in quantum mechanics. You draw psi, which is the wave function, and you insert it into this equation, Schrodinger's equation, and you solve for the particular circumstances this electron finds itself in. Right? It could be a free electron, it could be an electron in a well, it could be an electron between two barriers, and so on and so forth. That's how we come up with tunneling, quantum tunneling. A particle can tunnel through a wall, that sort of thing. So now you have a wave function, and typically, what is a wave function? The wave function is a probability density. It's not a density, it's a density of probabilities. And the complex conjugate of the wave function, you have to take the complex conjugate in quantum mechanics and so on. So the wave function tells you that it's a fuzzy distribution of probabilities. It kind of tells you that the particle could be in all these different positions at this time. We don't know quite. We know what the probabilities of each are. So from that perspective, the particle is in multiple positions at the same time, potentially. We don't know where it is. How do we know where it is? By observing it. But when we observe it, all the probability distribution collapses into just one point. That's called the collapse of the wave function. So as long as we don't observe the electron, it is in multiple positions at the same time. Let's think of it that way. But when we make an observation, it's no longer in multiple positions. All these positions collapse and only one is left. That's where we observe it. So that's the observer problem. It's not really the observer problem, it's the measurement problem, because an observation is a measurement. What do I mean by that? How do I know the electron is, let's say, here? By making a measurement. How do I make a measurement? So if I want to detect an electron, I have to use a probe or something. I have to use light, something, right? But at the scale of the electron, which is such a small particle, even if I hit it with a photon, the electron's properties will get affected by that. Its position will get affected. The photon will hit the electron will bounce away somewhere else. So even making a small measurement changes what you are measuring in quantum mechanics. And that's the measurement or the observer problem. That by making a measurement, you are collapsing the wave function and you are affecting the state of the system. Right? So whether it is you, whether it is whoever, by making a measurement, you are changing what you are measuring. You're changing it how? You're changing maybe the position, maybe the momentum of what you're measuring. Because to measure the position of an electron, you have to use something physical, either a photon, which is a particle of light, or something else. Even if you hit an electron with the photon to see where it is, the photon imparts momentum to the electron. And that changes the position of the electron, the speed of the electron, the momentum of the electron. So you're changing what you're measuring. So your measurement, you see, it's affecting what you're measuring, and that's what collapses the wave function. So what's your question? The solipsism. Solipsism is a philosophical concept. Even if you're the only thing that can collapse the wave function, you're not the only thing. It's your photon. It's your measuring apparatus that collapses the wave function. It's not you who collapses it. So it's not like consciousness is collapsing the wave function. It is the act of measuring the electrons that's collapsing the wave function. And others' observation for no. Okay. So that's the thing. That's the issue. Anabil Sarkar says, what are voids? Okay, today it's turning out into a science live stream, which is good. What are voids? Do galaxies exist inside voids? Voids are places, are regions of the universe where there is nothing. There's no stars. There's no galaxies. It's just big, black and dark. Big regions, light years across. Maybe thousands of light years across. With nothing essentially inside them. Maybe there's dark matter in there. But that's anyway, by definition, dark. If something exists inside it, it will not be called a void. So typically you don't have anything inside a void. One of the big voids is called the Boots void. Let's Google that. Boots void. Bootes. Yeah. Immense. So it's 700 million light years away. And it is 330 million light years in diameter. Ooh, imagine that. That's a void. Check it out. Right? So nothing exists inside. That's why it's called a void. If there was something inside, it would not be called a void. Maybe some stars may exist or whatever, but overall, the density of whatever exists inside it's very low compared to what's outside the void. Okay, Piyush Sinha says, is it possible to display all the live chats, not just super chat, all live chats on your screen? I know you won't be able to do that, but I'm curious to know about it. Also, please do a member-specific stream. Display all the live chats on the screen. Can I do that? How about that? Here we have all the live chats on the screen. Yay, let's go, chatting away. And you'll be able to see your chats on the screen. So this is going to be all chats, not just super chats, all the live chats. If that's what you want, well, I can put it on screen. I'm not sure what purpose it will serve, but if you want to see your chats, if you want to see your chats on the screen, if that's what you would like me to do, I have absolutely no issue to do that. Hello, Spade 2. Hello. Hot Flame Edits. Yes, hello. Harshai Kemcho. Yeah, so So if you want, I can put it on screen. I have no problem doing that. Yeah. Um, Member specific stream. I'll consider that. Akshay says supernova here is Big Bang of another universe opinion. I think supernovas are industrial accidents. No, supernova is not a Big Bang of another universe. It's simply a star dying in a spectacularly violent fashion. And why does that happen? It happens because electron degeneracy pressure first of all fails. Yeah, it's because electron degeneracy pressure fails, which is a quantum mechanical phenomenon. And if neutron degeneracy pressure fails, then something else happens, which causes something totally different from a supernova. Yeah. Electron degeneracy pressure fails, that's where you have a supernova. Neutron degeneracy pressure fails, that's where you have a black hole. Some stars just wink out of existence without ever going supernova, depending on the size and mass. Dheeraj Kamath says, if a total escalation flattening occurs, what is the risk of retaliatory strikes on GCC cities? Trying to gauge the safety of family in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Is retaliatory flattening against civilians likely? I think it is highly unlikely. I think it's highly unlikely. The US, if it launches massive airstrikes as is possible, they may cause significant, like you say, flattening, like I also say, flattening of Iranian cities like Tehran. I don't think Iran will go after will want to destroy entire cities. They will target US military bases and aircraft carriers and US assets. I don't think they will start indiscriminately flattening cities in Bahrain or Saudi Arabia. I don't think so. The Iranians aren't monsters. Yeah. I don't think they will do that. I doubt it very seriously. Iran won't do any retaliatory flattening. They will simply try to destroy the American assets in the region. And typically, American military bases are not close to cities, right? I mean, Bahrain, there is the American Fifth Fleet headquarters, which is not far at all from Manama. But that's already been obliterated as far as I know. I'm not sure if the Americans can bring more troops or whatever there, but if that is operational, then it is not safe to be in Bahrain, in my opinion. I don't think the Iranians will target Manama as such, but they will target the Fifth Fleet headquarters, which is not far at all from Manama. It's next door. So that makes it a dangerous place for civilians to be, if it is still operational. Saudi Arabia, I don't think there's much danger to people in civilian areas. Okay. So yeah, that's what I can tell you. But do your own due diligence for a family. You will know the conditions better. So all the best to you and your family. I hope everyone stays safe. Anabil Sarkar says, are ghosts real? If not, why so many cultures have ghosts? I don't know. Are ghosts real? I haven't seen one. So I can't say, but yeah, every culture has these stories of ghosts, which raises interesting questions. These stories have been around forever, right? So are ghosts real? I don't know. I can't say. And good night to you, sir. Good night. Thank you for the questions. Piyush Sinha says, if Japan someday becomes a sovereign nation and frees their constitution and education from the US, could they return back to the same dangerous imperial plan, dangerous imperial Japan? You know what they did in the Andamans in China. If Japan becomes a sovereign nation and frees their constitution and education from the US and their culture from the US. See, why did Japan become what it became? It's because of the Meiji Restoration, Meiji Restoration. That was a coup against the Japanese emperor. The guys who did the coup were the guys who were supposed to serve the emperor. And they took over the running of the country, but they kept the emperor as the figurehead. And then they turned Japan into a Western-styled nation, free of ethics and morals, and they essentially tried to destroy dharma in Japan. Japan is historically a dharmic civilization. Dharmic as in Hindu Buddhist, mixed with Shinto. Shinto is the original polytheistic culture of Japan, and that got mixed with Hinduism, Buddhism. Every Hindu god and goddess is worshipped in Japan with Japanese names, even today. So the Meiji Restoration was about the eradication of Dharma. And it did not succeed completely, but they were able to completely destroy the samurai culture. The samurais were dharmic warriors. They were like the Rajputs of Japan, the Kshatriyas of Japan. They destroyed the samurai tradition and they created the secular adharmic armed force, which is why Japan did whatever it did during the Second World War. Imperial Japan. Japan was always an imperial nation. It's not like Japan was imperial only in 1940, in the 1940s, right? So as long as Japan doesn't go down that road, it'll be fine if it becomes a sovereign nation. Yeah? Atul Prasad says about mixing science and spirituality. Great scientists, Newton, Leonardo were mystics, believed, Are bhai, I know that, yeah. I know. But they never mixed science and spirituality. They never mixed science and religion. Werner Heisenberg, he was very interested in Vedanta, in Hinduism. So was Erwin Schrödinger. But do you see that entering their equations? They never mixed science with religion. Newton was a crackpot. He wanted to do alchemy. Right? He spent much of his life after writing the Principia trying to discover the way of turning lead into gold. He was a believer in Christianity. But you don't see that in his equations. Georges Lemaitre, the guy who discovered what's called the Big Bang Theory, he was a Catholic priest. Do you see Catholicism in his equations? You never mix science and religion. You never mix science and spirituality. A scientist may have whatever beliefs. Srinivas Ramanujan was a devout Hindu. He said multiple times that his equations came to him in dreams given by goddess Namagiri. Right? But his equations are mathematics. You don't see mantras in those equations. As a scientist, you never mix science and spirituality. Please understand this. Okay? I'm sure it's hard for non-scientists to understand this. But that is a discipline. If you breach the discipline, you are no longer a scientist. And your work is no longer reliable. That's just how it is. All right? That's just how it is, my friends. Rohit says, why can't illegal be used as lab experiments for India's benefit? There are nations, for example, biological weapons have been banned in the world. Chemical weapons have been banned in the world. But I assure you, the most powerful nations, they do chemical weapons research. They do biological weapons research. Whenever there's a epidemic, Ebola or whatever, China and the US send scientists ostensibly to treat the people. Why are they actually there? To take samples of the new virus. So everyone does it. Every self-respecting nation should stay abreast of whatever's happening in the world. Atul Prasad says, do you believe in homeopathy based on alchemy? I don't believe in homeopathy. I don't. That's the short answer. I don't. Jetha Gada says, visited Odisha for the first time. Which king's dynasties built these giant temples like Konark, Puri and others in Bhubaneswar? No mention in the history books. Locals said Anantavarman but could not get much details. Good question. I can't remember right now. Kharavela, which dynasty was he from? Let me see. So Kharavela was the emperor of Kalinga, the 2nd or 1st century BC. I forget the name of the dynasty. Which dynasty was this? Mahameghavahana. Mahamegavahan dynasty, right? So Kharavela was one of the great emperors of India, not just Kalinga, right? So the thing is, Odisha's history is like, history books don't teach you Odisha's history. Okay, here we are. Okay, we're back. Odisha is neglected by India's history textbooks. Glorious history. They've contributed so much to our civilization. It is Kalinga that started the process of the Indianization and Hinduization of the entirety of Southeast Asia. Great merchants, great seafarers, great dynasties, great architecture. Some of the nicest people you will find in India, the people of Odisha. And it's a tragedy that the contributions of Kalinga, of Odisha, are forgotten today. Yeah. Pycraft Deepak Singh says Waterloo CS with 2Y Coop versus Toronto want. Okay, Waterloo Computer Science with 2-year Coop versus the University of Toronto want computer programming, self projects, deep LLM AI core, fear University of Toronto's rigid computer science academics, kills self-learning time. Waterloo can lose University of Toronto's AI CS curriculum death. I need your advice. I have absolutely no idea about this. I'm very sorry. I'm not an expert in the various curricula of various universities. I don't know about this. I could sit down and do some research for an hour or so. That would give me a better idea after going through every program in detail. But you have to consult a professional about this. Somebody who studies these things in detail and can give the actual actionable advice to students. I don't know about this. I wish I knew about this, and I wish I could give you the answer you seek, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what University of Toronto is offering. I don't know what Waterloo is offering. I don't know the details of their curricula. I don't know the pros and cons of each. I am very sorry, but I don't know. I'm very sorry about this. I don't have the answer for you. You're going to have to consult a professional. There are professionals who specialize in these things. They study each university department's offerings in detail, and they can tell you quickly which one is better suited for what you are seeking. So please do that. All right. All the best to you, Deepak Singh. All the best to you. Do well. Jitagara says Brahmos production hit by 50%. Check news. Really? So wrong. First Navik, then this. Government caught sleeping again. Let me find out. Brahmos production hit. Really? Brahmos production hit by 50%. Really? Brahmos production crashes over 50% due to staff exodus. Brahmos NG, new generation delays. Indian news portal NBT Online, part of Times of India, has reported, based on inputs from so-called reliable sources, that the production of Brahmos missiles has plunged to below 50% of the level achieved a year ago. And this drop in production is attributed to the transfer of around 56 employees from Hyderabad to Lucknow and Pilani over the last 6 months, which has led to employee disgruntlement and resignations. Well, this sounds like a terrible thing if it's true. If it's true, Brahmos. I'm NGT. What NGT news? What is it? NBT Online. Where is that? Why am I seeing it over here then? NBT Online. Where is NBT Online? Is it Now Bharat Times? ब्रह्मोस में मास ट्रांसफर से तनाव में कर्मचारी मिसाइल प्रोडक्शन बुरी तरह प्रभावित, नेवी के ऑर्डर हो सकते हैं कई साल लेट. गुड गॉड, if this is true, it's terrible. If this is true, it's terrible. The government needs to intervene as soon as possible at the earliest and fix this issue, whatever it is. Yeah. Piyush Sinha says, on what basis you said that Khamenei, Iran were moderates when they were the boss of IRGC, the same outfit responsible for the training of more than a dozen groups across the Middle East to conduct attacks? Which more than dozen groups? To conduct attacks on whom? Iran is an active geopolitical player. It has allies such as the Houthis, the Ansar Allah faction in Yemen. It also has allies in Iraq, the Shia allies. It had an ally in Syria. It has an ally in Hezbollah, which is again Shia, and so on. Why should you not have allies? Why should you not have allies, and why should you not use groups in the region when you are surrounded by your enemies? Tell me, why should you not do that? Should Iran have employed a Gandhian approach, spin khadi, and give pravachans of non-violence? Is that what Iran should have done? Iran is following exactly what Chanakya said any nation should follow. Right? Iran is not a terrorist nation, despite whatever the Americans claim. Iran is not Pakistan. Iran has never behaved the way Pakistan behaves. Khamenei gave a fatwa against nuclear weapons. Is that not the hallmark of a moderate person? If Iran was not a moderate nation, they would have by now had a lot of nuclear weapons. You understand? Okay, please understand. There's a reason why I said that. Piyush Sinha says, is there good news that the Israeli government has begun the process of migrating those those so-called lost Jewish tribes from India's Manipur to Israel? If they are miscreants, let them get off from India. I will be happy the day Israel takes all of them away. We welcome this. If Israel wants to take the 7-8 lakh cookies from India and settle them in Israel, please take them. They've just taken 250 of them. Right? There are lakhs of cookies who have infiltrated into India and who are occupying more than half of Manipur. You go to Manipur, you will find Israeli flags there. Do you know that? That's the situation. 250 will make no difference to us. That's the issue. That's the issue. Okay. Piyush says, no, sir, I asked whether you could put out every single live chat in big form like you. How is it? There are hundreds of live chats. It's not possible to display them all and answer them, right? That's why I've switched to super chats. There's a reason I've switched to super chats in the past few months. Earlier, I used to do live chats, right? In live chats, there's a lot of conversations happening between you all, which is good. But then it's hard to find good questions that are valuable for the audience to see. A lot of questions aren't, if I answer them, they aren't valuable to the audience. I may have answered some of them hundreds of times or dozens of times. So I want to find questions whose answers will genuinely give long-term value to you, my audience. So that's why it is better to do super chats, because if somebody pays to ask a question, they will ask good questions. So since I started using super chats, the quality of questions is improved. Okay. If I start displaying each of these live chats one by one, then when will I ever answer good questions? Explain to me, Piyush, please. So that's why it is not possible. It's fine. Yeah, that's why it's not possible to do that. VS, good to see you. Good to see you. Namaste. Yes. If you had a 10 crore net worth, how many cars would you have and what would their combined value be for you to find it financially healthy? What would be their... If I had a 10 crore net worth, how many cars would I have? How many cars would I have? Maybe one or two. Maybe one. What's the need to have 15 cars? I don't see any value in that. Even if I had 100 crore net worth, if I had $100 million net worth, I don't think I would need more than one or two cars. I would not need that. If you have wealth, you should not waste it buying things which you don't need, right? One car, I suppose, is enough. Maybe two cars, one regular and one larger one if needed. That's all. Maximum two I can think of. Even two would be overkill. What's a good amount of money to be financially healthy? Good amount of money to be financially healthy. I would say 10 crores is a decent start, I would say. Yeah. Globally, I would say if you have $5-10 million, then you are comfortably poor. Okay. Okay. Fabian Thomas says, I know, no, I know many people who live in the US are naturalized. Some are born there, but now they are scared and face racism. Do you see similarities to 1930s Deutschland, Germany? Not yet. I don't see similarities with 1930s Germany yet. Not yet. But Trump is pushing things in that direction. That rant that he put out which was by somebody else, that he put out on his Truth Social, that was seriously inflammatory and racist against Indians and Chinese. That was white supremacy nonsense. Trump is a dangerous guy for the world, you know. So I don't see it being similar to 1930s Germany yet, but it's definitely not going to be a comfortable environment for Indians and Chinese and non-white people to be in right now in the US. Pratik Kumar Roy says, Amisha Mishra one asks why legendary leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and others of the time had conservative views on women because of conditioning. I don't know. I don't know the history of Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Did he have conservative views on women? I have no idea. I don't know his life story. I don't know his views. I have no idea. I am not a student of India's so-called freedom struggle and our so-called freedom fighters. I'm sure Mr. Tilak was a great, great man. I'm not saying he is a so-called freedom fighter. I'm just saying most of these people who are today considered freedom fighters, all they did was do a fast for 24 hours or something. And I protested against the British by fasting for 24 hours. I'm not sure what Mr. Tilak, his views were. Conservative views on women. See, in the 19th century, everybody had conservative views on women. We were under foreign occupation for almost 900 years by that time, including 700 years by the Turks. When a nation is under foreign occupation by monsters like the Turks who regard women as pieces of meat, then it becomes natural for the society's culture to change and for us to keep our women hidden away and under wraps. Then everybody develops conservative views on women. So that explains the shift in India's culture from 1000 AD to 2000 AD. We were under horrific, brutal foreign occupation and oppression for so long. First the Turks and then the British. So that caused the change in our views and in the way we regarded women. If you see our carvings and sculptures of women in around 1000 AD, not just in temples but in stepwells, etc., Rani Ki Vav, for example, you will see women were not covered up like they were in 1900, right? So that change in views happened over a millennium because of foreign occupation. I don't know about Mr. Tilak and his views. I have no idea, but overall, that's the reason. Gulibar says, why legendary leaders like Bal Gangadhar? Why is the same question again? Okay, somebody else has taken up this question for Amisha. That's so nice of you, Gulibar, and the previous person. Thank you so much for being so kind. Amisha is one of the most active members of this channel. I mean, I really appreciate the questions she asks about history, and we will soon resume the history things as well. Yeah, once this situation dies out a little, and I'm sure Amisha will have a lot more very interesting questions to ask. So thank you. Akshay says, I watched the Project Hail Mary movie. Bad movie, but the book was good. It said traveling 11 light years at 92% the speed of light will take 4 to 5 years due to time dilation per Einstein's laws. Discuss on this. Look, I have to do some calculations to figure out. The book was excellent. I have recommended that book. The time dilation factor. Listen, I'm not going to sit and calculate right now how long it will take at 92% of the speed of light, whatever time it takes. Maybe the physics a little bit was wrong, but overall, I watched the movie. Overall, it was good. I don't think the movie was bad. Bad movie, really? There was no wokeism. There was no politics in there. The movie flowed along at a pretty rapid rate. I thought the movie was good. I didn't pay attention to how much time it took or whatever. Yeah, so discussion is very simple. Discussion about this, there is something called special relativity, which has the concept of time dilation. There's a factor gamma, v squared by c squared, that you have to plug into the equation, and that's how you get how much time dilation you get. Now, I'm not going to sit and do the calculations here, but okay, right. Reddy says, do you come from a royal family, ex-princely state? Well, well, my family, my surname is Chavda, right? So there used to be, Gujarat was once ruled by Chavdas. Okay, Gujarat, Western India, the Chavda dynasty, which happens to be my ancestors, yes. But that is more than 1,000 years ago. Not a princely state, never a princely state. Princely states were vassal states of the British. The Chavda dynasty and the kingdom was an actual kingdom, not a princely state. It was never under British suzerainty, right? So the Chavda dynasty was from somewhere in the 600 ADs to the middle of 900 AD, around 950 AD. But 250 or so, but 250, 300 years it ruled over Gujarat, various parts of Gujarat, right? So yeah, those were my ancestors. Yeah. So yeah, that's the story in brief. But that's not relevant anymore. That's more than 1,000 years ago. That's more than 1,000 years ago. That's hardly relevant today. Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, science episode request. Good night, everybody. All right. Thank you so much. And good night to you. And science episode. Yeah, I'll do it one of these days. I'll do it. Fabian Thomas says, ideology is a tool of power. Why do masses need it? Why does a person need one? Isn't every single ideology truth, editing, and repetition? Okay. Ideology is the tool of power. It's a tool of politics, and politics is a tool of power. Yeah. Yeah. Why do masses need it? Because masses need a purpose. Masses need a purpose. Masses need a framework that outsources their thinking to it. That's why masses also need religion, right? See, thinking is difficult. For most people, thinking is very hard. It hurts your brain to think. Most people just want to be told what to think and what to do. They don't want to decide, is this right or is this wrong? They just need a framework, right? That's where ideologies come in. That's where religion also comes in. Hinduism is not really a religion. It's a civilizational framework, right? So the thing is, most people don't want to think. Most people want to be told what to think, what to believe, and what to say, and so on. And that's where ideology comes in. It's that easy, right? And yeah, most ideologies are about truth editing, interpretation, and so on. Most of them. You're right. That's the thing, right? Okay, so that was the last question for today. All right. So I will end this here. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for the questions and for your viewership. As always, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep raising your standards. Keep raising your standards. Even if it is like 1% per week, still keep raising your standards. So I'll see you very soon in the next one. Until then, take care and goodbye, good night, good day. For now, see you.